October 2nd. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, October 3rd, sorry. I apologize.
So moved.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good evening. Before we get started, I just wanted to say and pause for a minute. There's a lot going on in the world today, and I just think as a town we're so fortunate to live where we are, and we see all the strife and tragedy in Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, and in Las Vegas, and I just want to extend on behalf of the board to all those folks out there our sympathy and our thoughts to all of them, because I think it's a pretty unusual time that we're all in. So I just wanted to start with that and show our, I don't want to say condolences, but certainly there are some condolences that are certainly due. So on behalf of the town of Scituate, we're thinking of all of you. And
Well
that's
said.
it. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for helping me end that. Do we have any walk-ins this evening?
No, name and address.
Sure.
David Darty, 122 Gilson Road.
And Mr. Doherty, I just want to let you know that you are on the agenda a little bit further down.
Yes.
Okay.
I understand that. It's why I'm speaking now.
Okay.
Last week, an article came out in the Patriot Ledger. It was discussion about the wind turbine and what was going to go on here. And the quote from one of the town officials was, "The turbine is totally in compliance with noise regulations." It's a simple little statement, and it certainly implies a great deal, but it doesn't mean very much. The only testing that was ever done was done according to the DEP regulations that this comment alludes to. And those regulations do not properly address the unique sounds that emanate from wind turbines. As quoted by the director of the Southeast Department of Environmental Protection, he says, quote, "Evaluation of sound impacts from wind turbines is a complicated issue that was not considered by the Mass DEP when it developed its sound evaluation and noise compliance guidance in the early 1970s and revised in 1990. So what that means in essence is any testing that is done, it may or may not be valid, but one can't specifically ascertain that the results of it are true. You may have situations that the noise is so great that it shows that problem, and then there are other situations, which I'll explain, where it doesn't show the particular noise problems that come from wind turbines. In the DEP was very confident of this, of the problems involved in their regulations, because in 2013, the summer, they called for a conference called WindTag, where they solicited the opinions from professionals throughout the industry. There were acousticians in there. We had Mike Betharian and Steve Ambrose and Chris Menge with HMMH, and even Mr. Bangert sat on that panel to discuss these things. And they came up with recommendations that the DEP wanted on how to modify the regulations so it takes in the unique sound characteristics of wind turbines. And they came up with some good ideas, but to date, they haven't incorporated them in the law. So we still have this regulation and the protocols to test that don't address things like amplitude modulation. I didn't want to really get into this until later, but later on we have a discussion about how to remedy the situation here in Scituate relative to the complaints from this type of noise emanation. And I didn't want the Board of Selectmen to go into listening to the ideas that Mr. Bangert had to eliminate our situation, thinking that you had the strength behind you that we're overly sensitive or there's something wrong with us because you have a solid testing program. That doesn't exist. As far as you are concerned, you have nothing relative to testing. One of the deputy directors of the DEP went on record saying that the DEP feels if you have noise complaints from within the community, it means there's a violation of protocols. So later on this evening, when you enter into discussions about what to do about it, just remember, there's no testing that's been adequately done. Only thing you have is a folder full of complaints and the voices of these good people behind me who are residents, friends, neighbors, the people who voted for you and are looking for your support. With that said,
So, Mr. Doherty, we're going to discuss it at length, and I'll give you an opportunity to speak during that time on the agenda as well. I think there's a lot of information that will be presented during that time, and give you an opportunity to also speak up during the time on the agenda.
yeah, just let me, what I did was, I built a little model to scale, and I was going to try to inform you about the different characteristics of wind turbines, so that you have a better idea what infrasound is, what constant noise is, and what impulsive noise is, the amplitude modulation, what causes them, the folly and the faults in data gathering from the different firms that do these testings, why it should be independent, why the wind turbine operator shouldn't be notified because he can alter the turbine during the testing procedure. All these things should be taken into account even before they modify the regulations. There's a lot of
I'm sure there's a lot that can't be covered during a weekly business review of Board of Agenda items, so especially when you get that technical. So if we can get to the agenda item and address and see what action the board wants to take, and then obviously open to listening to that technical aspect as we go through the discovery in whatever direction the board wants
Will
to
you
take
allow
at
me
that
to
time.
do that tonight?
Not for an hour long,
Oh,
sir,
no.
but
It
if
would-
there
at
is
most- at
some
most it would-
information that you can share with us,
At
absolutely.
most, it would be 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, I spent a lot of time to create this. The vanes move this way, it spins, you can rotate.
Sure.
And it's all materials that were recyclable, and I did it with a handsaw, so there's no energy, it's green, it's positively green.
We appreciate that, being a green community. Okay.
So I
Deal?
hope you will allow me to give you a little bit of insight.
We will, if we can keep it.
I didn't make fancy
Point.
charts for you and everything.
Thank you.
I used to charge money for this.
I'm sure you did. Thank you. Okay, any other walk-ins? There being none. Al, the report of the acting town administrator?
First, I'd like to announce that the town has received 2 grants. I think I might have mentioned to one of you that the Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has granted $125,000 to the town of Scituate for the, in support of Scituate Facts Coalition. It's a grant applied for by Anne Marie Galvin and granted by the federal government. So that's pretty neat recognition for the town.
That's great work.
The second grant that we've received was from the Governor's Office and the Department of Environmental Protection for a recycling dividends program. And this is a grant of $13,200 through Sustainable Materials Recovery Program. So we're a recipient of that grant as well. And that will work with the DPW and the transfer station.
Excellent.
Great. The second thing I'd like to do is to ask Kevin Kelly to step forward for just a second. Are you all ready for, you have your presentation ready?
Sure, I'm
No.
ready to go.
What I'd like to point out is that really over the last couple of years, Kevin, who is just recently became a 5-year employee, as of August was his 5-year anniversary, in the course of the last couple of years particularly, has focused on helping us get a school built, a library built, and public safety building built. And in addition to that, has been juggling this $5 million energy savings program called the ESCO. And while doing that, has integrated something that hasn't been done before, integrated the town facilities people and the school facilities people, and brought it together so that the janitorial staff is working with him at the schools, within our buildings here, and has kind of reached across the school-town line to make good with the school. And has really become recognized in the town hall and other places as kind of the go-to guy, which I know you don't always appreciate that, but when a toilet's plugged, who do you call? Toilet busters. Yeah, so it's Kevin. So I just wanted to have him sit here and be embarrassed for just a minute on his 5-year anniversary and get some recognition for the work he does that isn't always seen by the public, but is certainly seen by the rest of the staff in the school and in the town facilities. So thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely.
That's it. No presentation, Kevin.
Yeah, congratulations. You have
Thank
been
you.
very busy in your short time, 5 years here, so we can't thank you enough for everything that you've taken on, and look forward to your continued success here.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very fortunate. I work with a lot of people and help a lot of nice people, and it's easy to be nice to nice people, so I'm lucky to be here.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Take the rest of the hour off. So at the last meeting, you asked that we set up an opportunity for you to have a special Board of Selectmen meeting next Tuesday night. We have reserved the Performing Arts Center for Tuesday from 5 o'clock on, so you can decide if next Tuesday the 10th is a good day and what time you'd like to have your meeting. And my understanding is this is a special agenda item for the Board of Selectmen to concentrate on the choices that we have before us for senior center site location, weigh the pros and cons, and perhaps come to decide what the next steps forward are on that particular project. So,
Does the 10th work for everyone?
does that work for everybody?
Doesn't work for me. I can maybe make 5 to 5:30, but the rest of the evening I can't. So you can go forward without me if you'd like. That's if it's more convenient. But
What about
Well,
early?
it doesn't have to be a Tuesday either.
Yeah,
yeah,
doesn't have to be a Tuesday.
if it could be another date, that's great. But unfortunately, next Tuesday's not good.
Okay. Can we just look, do they have a lot of things going on over there?
Nah.
Well, I mean, next week, or was that the only date that was available, the 10th?
Do you want to find a different day in that week, or do you want to?
Doesn't matter to me, Mark.
All right, we'll put together a couple of choices and email you, and you can respond. How would that be?
Thank you.
Good.
It'd be best to have everyone.
The Harbor Community Building, we now have available. The library has moved out, has been cleaned up and ready to go, and I think we're ready to put it back on the docket as one of the town's rental buildings for the public to use. And we're moving forward on the basis that that's what we should go do. If you'd like to do something different, let us know.
Without compromising space for the seniors?
No, we would always work within the scheduled use of it by the senior center and by the recreation department. Both of those departments use that pretty much during the daytime.
Okay.
Okay, so this would be for evening events or weekend events.
Okay.
All right, and we have a schedule for doing that. It'll be managed by the Selectmen's office, and there'll be fees collected as was established prior to the time it was taken off the list to be used for the library.
No, there's a-
Okay?
Everybody else, okay?
Ow, the offices at the end, they're not being used?
The offices are not being used in there.
Okay.
You mean the fax, the other end?
Well, the fax office at the end
They're
of
at
the
the
old.
WPA, aren't
yeah,
they?
Yeah, right
Aren't
on
they
the
at the
far
WPA
eastern
now?
end. Those are being used.
Oh, they are, okay.
But when the library went in there, we took the kitchen and made offices out of that.
Yeah,
Right.
And those are not being used.
Right.
And aren't usable really at this point for rental purposes.
No.
Those would be excluded.
yeah, I agree.
Okay. There's a small kitchenette in there for, what you would call it, a caterer's kitchen, where they have a chance to just drop off cold items and keep them refrigerated, do some wash up and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
it's suitable for a birthday party or something like that. Okay?
Sure.
And also, as follow-up to last week, we have several options of land that we could use as the 7.1 acres to put into conservation. We're going to make sure we do a title search and everything to make sure that the land is indeed available for that, and we'll get back to you at your next Board of Selectmen's meeting with what we would recommend as the piece of land to put into conservation. Okay? And then, you remember we discussed the crosswalk out here in front of the school? So the police chief has been monitoring that just to see what's actually happening there, what he should do differently about the traffic patterns. It's actually settled down quite nicely now, so it's much better than it was before. And the engineering department is moving forward with getting flashers for the crosswalk in the school zone.
Do they have timing on that?
It'll be several months
Yeah.
because of state permitting.
Well, I saw that the chief put a sign, no turning left on 3A.
Yes,
So
and
that's-
they put that up every
that's nice.
morning and take it down after the departure time. So that takes some of the load off the crosswalk. Okay.
And thanks for getting that done the next day.
Oh,
He was out there and got those two things done. And I think, who was it, Jen Gagan's concern was more over here, coming out on this side of Town Hall and trying to go right.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you got that one. And also, just want to thank Anne Marie, I don't know if she's in here, that was huge, that grant is huge. That really, this was the last year of the grant money that we had for a program, and, basically gave the program another year. And we're doing such good stuff for the whole state that, it was a federal grant, right?
Yeah.
So it shows how good our program is.
What does that bring her total to? Over $700,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Al on any of the outstanding items?
Nope.
All right. All right, we'll move on to the first scheduled item for a discussion and vote with the library, Scituate Library Foundation. Ginny Ayers, Ginny? I have to apologize, I'm sorry I did not call you, so I apologize. I know you wanted to touch base before you came in tonight,
That's all
so
right. Nope,
I
it
owe
was
you an
other stuff
apology.
anyway. And this is Storm Eckelhofer, who
Hi,
is our
Storm.
treasurer.
Welcome.
I have taken over as the new president this year for the new term. Les has retired.
Congratulations.
Officially, thank you. And Storm is the official, has taken over as treasurer. Don Nelson is vice president, he couldn't be here, and Mike Cuneo is clerk. We just wanted to give you an update on where we are. I think obviously the past year has been fairly frenetic for pretty much everyone involved in all areas of town right now. But while some of the terms have expired, 4 terms have expired, everybody has stayed on the foundation to help out in some capacity, just ex officio, which just speaks to their dedication. It's pretty amazing, actually. And it's been worth it. I think the library, by all accounts, is the community gem everybody wanted it to be and hoped it would be. We've kind of taken a collective deep breath over the last few months just to let everyone catch up with some stuff administratively. So to that end, I do have 4 memorandums of agreement with me that are the document any donations over $2,500 and the corresponding naming opportunities that come with them. So we've been just kind of bringing these in, I think, as we've had them. And so I'll read them off to you just so that they're on record. Kevin Malloy, family and friends have donated $2,500. A small book stack will be named in memory of Mary Malloy. And Castagna Construction, which built the building, donated $5,000. A large book stack will be named in honor of Ralph Castagna and Castagna Construction. And that's really
Very
nice, because
nice.
they're from the North Shore. Yeah, so that was nice to
Very
see.
nice.
Ann and Anthony Jones donated $7,913, and a large book stack will be named in honor of them both. And lastly, Jackie and Richard Leach have donated $10,000, and one of the 3 study rooms will be named in their honor.
Excellent.
And so these have all been signed by the donors, the foundation, and the library board of trustees, so they just are for your approval and signature.
Right?
Well, thank you, that's wonderful.
You're welcome. There's still plenty of naming opportunities, just to go on the record, if anybody still wants to add their name to the beautiful building, we're still in business. You may have noticed that there is, some of the signage in the library is temporary. We didn't have it for the opening gala, and we were kind of waiting to get some feedback and make sure we had it all correct. But that has been ordered, so permanent signage should be going up shortly, and all of the book stacks in the rooms. We are using the library's account to order the signage, just to take advantage of the town's discount, and then we're reimbursing it all. So the foundation's paying for all the signage. And as previously mentioned, I think we did it in June, the opening gala was chaired by Emily Anderson and Amy Linnell, and did a fabulous job. We ended up raising the total for that was over $50,000 for that one event. So that was really successful.
Excellent.
And very much appreciate the use of the library. I think that made it really a special occasion to be having, a sneak peek of sorts in the town building, which was really fun. Logistically a nightmare, but a lot of fun.
It was a wonderful event. You pulled it off.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of hands. They chaired it, everybody, it was all hands on deck, and we had so much help from so many people, and it was very much appreciated. And so to date, we've raised almost $1.5 million. That includes about $370,000 in outstanding pledges. I know that we handed over a check for $50,000 at a meeting in early June, and we wanted to do 100. We did bring in another $50,000 into Town Hall on June 30th, just so that it would be in your coffers for year-end accounting purposes, but we didn't get a chance to go on record, so we did bring that in. Today, we have another check for $100,000, actually 2 checks totaling $100,000.
Wow.
So that brings our total to $1 million, which we're very excited about, yes. And I wanted to have a chance, if I can, to introduce, there's a couple other foundation members here. Joe McNally is new to the foundation back here, and Skip DeBrest is one of our long-term founding members and stays on as an ex officio member. So we appreciate very much everybody's
Well, we
efforts.
appreciate, and I'm sure the taxpayers of Scituate appreciate all the work that you've done to get that library up and running, and all the, 1.5 you said already?
Yes.
Including pledges.
Including pledges.
Yes.
That's phenomenal,
Yes.
so.
So, yeah, a lot of the donations that come in, just, I think people are, are not checks that are, obviously, some people can write a check, and we're very grateful for that. And a lot of them are pledges that can be donated up to, 3 or 4 years out over time as they can handle it. And we're hoping that some of these people, too, will, appreciate the value that the library brings, and there's an ongoing need for capital improvements outside of what the town can afford, so they'll stay on as ongoing benefactors. So.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything? Virginia?
It's
No?
wonderful.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, the fact that you've raised $1 million, even $1.5 million if it comes to fruition. So, thank you, and it made the building, able to be done.
When they're done with that, can we sign them up for something else too?
Yeah, we could use some
No,
more
it's
fundraising
that's-
efforts.
It is an outstanding team, having worked with a lot of you people for the last 10 years on this project. It really is extraordinary how many hundreds of people literally got involved to make that happen with the leadership of the foundation.
And I'm sorry, Les Ball is actually out of the country at a wedding in South Africa this week, and
Well, that's much
safari
more
and
fun
a
being
wedding.
here.
It is very fun, but he would have to be out of the country in order to not be here tonight, because a lot of the $1 million is very much
Quite well taken.
attributable to his fundraising efforts, so
Excellent.
Thank you.
there we go.
Thank you very much. Good job.
You can give it to Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy can take it, and it's all right.
And how about the documents for signature?
Lorraine.
Lorraine. Jenny, thank you so much. Thank you,
Thanks, Jenny.
Storm. Please extend our gratitude to the rest of the foundation. Careful there.
Yeah,
Get that windmill.
can't break Jimmy.
All right. Next on the agenda is to review and discuss and vote the town administrator finalists in our selection for a town administrator. First, I'd like to kick it off to say that I think we had 3 very strong candidates that came before us in the last week. We held interviews last week, for those of you that may have missed, last Monday and last Tuesday evening over at the Emergency Operations Center. 3 candidates: Mr. Marino from Hanover, who is currently an assistant town administrator, Kevin Sweet, who is a current town administrator in Maynard, Mass., and then Jim Boudreau, who is a current town administrator in Lynnfield, Mass. I know I can say that this board, just in speaking with them over the past week, individually have all done our due diligence to make phone calls, to check references, to speak with folks in these towns, to speak with people that they may have put down as a reference, people that they may not have put down as a reference. It's very important to me, and I know the rest of the board feels this way, that we choose someone that is the right fit for all of Scituate, right fit for our residents, and very importantly, the right fit for all of our staff, all of those folks that work in and throughout the town, and someone who can also take us not to the next level, but to continue all the work that's been happening, really, right, for the last 8 years or so. So, in my mind, you know, and I'll kick it off here since I'm the chair, I've narrowed my decision really between two people. So I feel that both Kevin and Jim are both very strong candidates. For me, Tony is a good candidate, but the other two outweigh him with experience already being in the job and the role, and I just think the other two fit more within Scituate. I know we have a lot of discussing to do, and for me, Kevin brings a fresh perspective. You know, he's been in his job in Maynard for about 8 years, 6 years, 4 years as a TA, 2 years as an assistant. Definitely young, highly educated. Things that I've learned in speaking with other people, that he's a steady manager, clear direction, engages his employees as well as engages the public. Has some nice, I think we all heard, some nice outreach to the public, which I thought was nice and important. It really took the time to educate not only town hall on what things were going on internally, but also externally throughout the public. So I think he brings some uniqueness. And then I'll just chime in a little bit on Jim to start off the conversation too, is that I think Jim brings an enormous amount of experience. He also, when looking through his management style, from folks that I spoke to, has a very open door policy, works well and collaborates with his staff, which is very important to me, and also has a very nice open door policy with residents. Those, from a personal attributes, are both very important to me, and also their fiscal acumen. So Jim obviously has been, you know, managing budgets longer and doing capital planning longer. So his experience, you know, for me tilts a little bit that way, but Kevin certainly has instituted capital planning initiatives in his town as well, and has a budget very similar to ours. So, you know, I'll just open it up to the board and see what else other folks want to add in, and see if we can't come to some conclusion tonight. And I can assure you, in my mind, it's very, very, very close for me. So I'm interested in hearing where everyone else is shaking out this evening.
Want me to go first?
Sure, I'll look at you first.
Well, first of all, yeah, we spent quite a bit of time discussing, thinking who would be the best fit for our town. But I want to thank you and Tony. You guys started this process. We weren't sure who was going to do it. You put, I don't know how you maintain everything you have outside of town hall, especially this past couple of months, especially the last few weeks. So thank you very much to both of you. And I want to thank the staff. This is my second time doing this. And so the first time was, you know, obviously didn't know really what to expect. I remember a few staff people being in this room when Tricia sat in the front row or up at the desk. But both meetings, and I think we would have had more, but that other was a Tuesday night, so the conflicts. So I want to thank all of the department heads and the audience that came, you know, because that, you know, you are the folks that are going to work with them for 8 hours a day, and what you've got to say means a lot to me. You know, we come and we go. You know, we all want the same thing. We want what's best for the town. So I just wanted to thank those two people. I, like you, you brought 3 great people to us. 2 probably did stand out a little better, maybe just a better fit for this town, but Tony brought some things that, you know, maybe the others didn't. He had, you know, younger, maybe more time, one town away. But having said that, to me, it's very close, probably leaning towards one a little more than the other. We want someone with experience. We want someone with some new ideas. And like you said, we've done a lot in the last 10 years. We've done a lot more in the last 10 years than we did the first 10 years that I was on the board. So, you know, can we keep this growth up? I don't know, you know, but we asked them the questions, what were on our mind, senior center, coastal issues and stuff like that, and they seem to answer it quite well. But I think possibly Jim being next door with the amount of years he has under his belt, that he might understand our needs a little bit better. And having served in Norwell for 17 years, like you said earlier, some of us, they put things on the resume that we want to see, and they know we're going to check those things. But we all did our own little investigating and found out about these people, that they don't know who we know and so forth. Everything that I have found out about those two, all three, nothing but great things. So having said that, I think I'd be, this morning I was probably leaning more towards Kevin. He has to relocate. That might be a difficult thing right now, this time of year, with his family and everything going on. Jim's a mile and a half up the street. He hasn't been a TA in this town, but he certainly knows what's going on in this town just by living in Norwell. So, tough decision, but probably lean towards Jim, if you want my opinion, for those reasons.
Okay. John, you wanna go?
Sure. Certainly, Sean, I concur with what you're saying with respect to the staff, for the members who are involved, who are interested in being involved. And thank you for both for actively getting engaged, interviewing. That's not an easy process. And the reason why I know that's because originally when we had done this 8 years ago, we were all able to participate. Due to the change of the regulations, we were not this time around. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and, as I said from the get-go, these are a part of the charter for the Board of Selectmen of the duties, and you guys did a very good job to try to bring to this board and to the public candidates who hopefully will represent not just themselves, but the staff and the town going forward. I had, through the process, I'll be candid, this has been probably the toughest decision I've had to make on the Board of Selectmen as far as a good decision. There have been problems in the past that it's never easy to make a choice when people are angry and upset. But this is one that has a real long-term impact, not just for us, but for all of you folks out there. And it's been difficult because the last time it was difficult initially. We went through the first analysis and the first review process of the interviewees. And then it became clear when we were deciding on Tricia that she was head and shoulders above the others. This is not the case here, and I think I've been wrestling with the issue. I think most of you probably have been wrestling the issue, and I think speaking to various people in town, they too have been dealing with the issue of, what's the better candidate? And I've narrowed it to two also. The same two, Jim, that you talked about, Sean. Again, that's no reflection on the third candidate. He certainly represented himself well, and I wish him well. It's just when you're making a decision like this, it's important to figure out what's the fit. And you hit the nail on the head, Sean. What's the fit for this town? What's going to happen for the department heads? What's going to happen for the way that they're going to handle themselves for the budget going forward, and also what's going to be in the best interest of the residents. I have to say, I looked at the experience of both, and I think they both have different experiences, one more than the other. I looked at their knowledge. They both have definite knowledge in different capacities. One has strengths in some areas, the other has strengths in the others. And then I look at their capability of what they can do, not just for the town, but I also look for what we're looking to try to do and what the town's looking to do. And the issues that I look at on top of that are, how are they going to handle the staff? I don't want a candidate who's going to micromanage the staff. I want the staff to be able to have the flexibility that they delegate to the staff, that they're able to say, hey, listen, this is what we're looking to do, go do it, without having to look over their shoulder all the time. And I think it's important that they have an acute eye on the budget, because everything is very costly these days. So I think those two things are very important with how this person's going to conduct themselves. And I get back to the last one, which is something that I can't determine, only time will tell, and that is, how are they going to conduct themselves with the residents? Are they going to be engaged? Are they going to participate in town events? Are they going to be seen in town? So going through all that and weighing it between the two of them, and the two being Mr. Sweet and Mr. Boudreau, I came to the conclusion that I think, what would be in the best interest of the town, the staff, and given the experience. And the thing that kind of sticks out with me is the fact that Mr. Boudreau, Jim, remained town administrator for 17 years. That's a commitment that you don't see nowadays. And I think, looking at that, I can see that, he's going to be committed to this town, he's next door, and I've come to the conclusion that I think, in my opinion, Jim would be the best decision for me, for our town administrator. So that's where I'm leaning.
You
So we make the newbie go last?
want to go now or last?
It doesn't
Go
matter.
ahead. you
Go
can-
ahead, you go.
Yes, you guys, thank you for all the work you put into. You brought us 3 great candidates. And I think everyone has said what we've all been struggling with. I agree that Mr. Sweet and Mr. Boudreau are the candidates that we should be comparing. Mr. Marino was a strong candidate, and he was definitely worth the look. But I too think that compared to the others, he does not have the same level of experience. So, in looking at the other 2, of course, I went and did a whole metrics. We talked about all of these attributes that we think are important, and some are stronger than one's stronger. One area they were dead even is when you try to analyze it as pure data. I think Mr. Sweet had a lot of enthusiasm and was open to some innovative ideas that I found exciting. We have a great new team that have come on to support our amazing staff that's already here, and that appealed to me, that he could be part of that new team. That was balanced from the steady hand of somebody that's been working at this a lot longer. In checking with different references, and as we all did, I spoke with some that were on their reference list, and I also reached out to selectmen in the towns they worked in or have worked in, and just other people. And I wish it were easier to say, but I have to say, of all of these comments, both of them got comments like, "You'd be lucky to have him," and only one person on either said, "Well, this thing I don't like." They were dead even on their comments from known or not known. I know that I believe Mr. Sweet that he would consider a move closer to town. It is a concern to have him that far away. It's not that far away, but to have that distance. That said, Mr. Boudreau's been going to Linfield for the last 2 years, so it can be done. Yeah, I'd like to see what Tony has to say, because it really is. I think, John, you're absolutely right. I don't think we'll make a bad decision because they're both very strong candidates. And I feel that both of them have the most important attribute, which is they respect the staffs that they work with and they have good reputations with their staff. And I think that is a key element to who we bring in here next. So before I tip my hand, I'll let you.
Yeah, I know, I was going to say, it didn't matter what I was going to say.
Okay, let's vote.
Of course it does. No, it does. I mean, I think, I'll share with you.
No, I'll sound like a broken record, but first I'll start with Tony from Hanover. He was a very, very strong candidate, and had he not been up against 2 people that had a lot of experience more than him, then we'd be talking about him right now.
Yep.
Some of us have talked independently about this, and I really, for a week now, have been trying to figure out between the other 2 candidates which way I lean, and one day I'm this way, one day I'm that way. It's really, there's not a clear winner. I think if we pick either of the 2 men, the town's going to be in a good condition. What I tried to do is focus on 1 or 2 things that I thought were most important for the town, and which one of them would be strong there. And there wasn't even like a strong and a weak in a category. I liked, obviously I liked Jim's just solid performance, experience, 20 years of this, living right down the street, management style, knowing the people in the environment, knowing the people in the region to be able to get things done, having some familiarity with Scituate and the storms that we have. That was all very strong for him. I liked kind of Kevin was a little different. Some of you saw the interviews. He was younger and had, not that Jim's old, but just kind of had a little bit of perspective on it, was very engaged. Again, don't take what I say positive for one as negative for the other, but he said some things in how he engaged with his departments that intrigued me. I think Karen was talking about that, and really seemed interesting and innovative. that I liked. I liked the fact that he had a ton of emergency management experience and was really hands-on in all those events. And Jim probably wasn't anyone that he had too, but again, it's kind of unfair. We've spoken to these people 2 times, and they could only tell us so much in those two sessions. Kevin did send us a form of his significant achievements. So afterwards, he said, look, I spoke with you for an hour and a half. I really couldn't explain everything I've done. I want to just document some of it for you. And as I was reading down this form, it almost read like Scituate. You know, it was like, okay, we do sidewalks, a 5-year rolling plan, a senior center, LED upgrade, electronic vehicles, capital stabilization fund, OPUB, you know, written new personnel policies, a cultural district, solar array, contract negotiations, you know, and that's just the ones that I just happened to highlight a second ago. So I thought that he would be very in tune with all this stuff, because we've just done all this in the last 4 or 5 years. And maybe Jim has done it too, but I just didn't have the piece of paper in front of me that said that. So I think we're fortunate. I think one of the 2 candidates, either of the 2 candidates will do a very good job here, but coming into this meeting, I'm kind of waiting for somebody to say something that's going to convince me one way or another. I've spoken with a lot of people, and I have not heard anything negative about either of them. And I think, you know, I don't know exactly how I'm going to vote yet. But I think there were some things that Kevin said stuck with me. So, you know, maybe he's a centimeter ahead of Jim, but if we get Jim, we're going to be lucky as anything to get him. So, so I don't know, you know.
No, and I share, wavered back and forth every day, and with each new discovery. And, you know, how I picture Kevin is he's a rising star. He's innovative, he's progressive, he takes some risks, and
He might be here for a while, too.
he hopefully, yep, he may be. And some of the, I just want to share with you some of the comments about Kevin, that he has confidence and strives for excellence in everything that he does. And he develops his people and believes in giving his folks and his people the time to do their jobs and to analyze. I mean, I think he's the type of manager that would really be beneficial to our town. And I have struggled with this, going back and forth, and for me, it's boiling down more to experience, because while I feel that Kevin's been a TA for 4 years, assistant for 2. He's in a town that is in a rough spot. It needs some development. It's kind of like a sleepy town today. And while his budget is close to ours, and his staff is close to ours, I feel that Scituate is unique as we have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of projects that still need to be taken care of and addressed and move forward with. And I think I would be more comfortable with someone with more experience and expertise that could come in and assess those different projects right off the bat and help us through those future fiscal years too. I think, you know, we're looking in the next couple of years, some tight fiscal management, and he's got stronger financial acumen just working with municipal budgets for a longer time. So for me, if I needed that little glimmer, you know, which way should I go? Because I have gone back and forth for the past 7 days. So I think that experience and that ability to lead us through future financial rough times in the next couple of years, I'm leaning more towards Jim, if that helps anybody.
Not an easy decision, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're both great candidates. It's a great problem to have. That's all I can say. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah, I did have the same reaction when I saw the document that Kevin Sweet had sent, and I started underlining, and I'm like, these are all real issues for us. You know, what are you going to do with the senior center, and what do you do with the wastewater treatment plant? And, you know, he did, in short 4 years, he did do some and implemented some financial policies and things that Tricia had done 8 years ago for his town. So I feel like he does have that hands-on experience there. And he did come, and he did invest in long-term technology in his town, address the needs that was not just in how the town functioned, but how the schools worked. And I thought that was something that I hadn't thought about. But on Jim's side, some of the comments from people that have worked with him in Linfield said that he would have the solution before he knew there was a problem. That he was very proactive, you know, because of his experience. He would be, you know, he has, and I thought that was a double-edged sword in some ways, because we have such a collaborative working relationship with our departments that I want to make sure that they're included in those considerations when the problem comes up. So, but that he certainly has the experience and the background that he can address these things. So I told you the same thing. I'm still like you guys. It's tough.
If we're talking about some of the comments that you have just mentioned, one that stuck in my mind, I think I've maybe said it to a couple of you or not, it wasn't myself that reached out on behalf of Kevin, but someone said, I think it was one of the chiefs, great, 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 we hope you don't hire him. I mean, who would say that if they really didn't want him to stay? You know, so, like I said before, it's a tough decision. Either one will suit us just fine. I just, like you, relocating this time of year might be difficult, you know. Can it be done? Sure, it can be. But, you know, someone who's a little closer might know the town a little bit better just walking in, you know, being in Norwell. So, and I too reached out to someone who I don't really want to mention, wasn't on his
Sure.
resume, that couldn't say enough good about him. So,
About Jim.
that's correct, yes, right. So,
The other thing I liked is the fact that both of them got along very well with their school districts, that they all had very good relationships. Their budget processes were different, but they seemed to be able to work through the bumps, you know, in the budget and financial tough times. So it's, you know, we're not going to lose here.
So,
Let's see if I'm-
We really, the whole point of longevity, I think, is also equal, you know, just because they're different ages. Jim's is still, he got a lot of career in him, and I think you could argue both ways that this could be, you know, a great place for him to stay for a while, because he's been at it and he's not gonna be looking to, you know, look for the next town, I would imagine. I'm just speculating. And with Kevin, he's still new in his career, so that could work both ways too for us. So, I don't know if that helps with the longevity question.
John, do you have anything else before I see if anybody has anything?
No, I think pretty much everybody's covered everything that I think, certainly I felt, the way I feel. Yep.
Did anybody have a comment, or? Oh? Yes.
Phyllis Carlberg, 26 Hughes Road.
Sure.
I was at 2 of the interviews that you guys had, and I had the opportunity to speak with each one of them afterwards out in the parking lot. Not Tony, I didn't get to that one, but the 2 people that you're considering. From a resident point of view, again, both of them are highly qualified. I think that they would be great, but in talking to them both afterwards, you got a different feeling from both of them. I think that one candidate will work very nicely with you guys, and you know, really can care less about the residents, and the other one, I think, in my opinion, but the other one, and I know that there's other issues, but he was genuinely happy to talk to you, and he understood what you were talking about, and the other candidate just kind of blew it up, you know. So if you can take it for what it's worth, but I wanted to make sure that I happened to mention that, so.
To be clear, which candidate are you referring to that had the residence?
Excuse me,
Yeah,
The residents
Excuse
in
me.
mind,
yeah.
excuse me, sir?
You have to go through the
You have
chair.
to go through the
You can't have a, you can't have a
Through the chair,
conversation.
May I ask that same question?
One second.
Sure.
I think I can answer that just by, if I could guess. And not that I think I probably could, okay, maybe we all could. But to your point, Phyllis, so the one person that I called and spoke to tonight, I asked that same question. If we're talking about one of the candidate from Norwell, okay, I said, is he very approachable? And I'm not a selectman, I'm a resident, okay, or I'm a department head. And he said, absolutely. Now, this guy that I'm talking about, I said I'd mention his name later on, lifelong resident of Norwell, has served on some appointed boards and currently does not. Nothing to gain. What was pretty neat about that was he lives in Norwell, so it's not like I'm talking to someone from Linfield who's going to lose him or keep him. No, they're already, they're not looking, they're good, so he could speak honestly, and frank with me. So I think that's who you were talking about, just based on, and don't forget, the other thing that I'm sitting there, they had a little advantage, was they get nervous. So one might be, room full of people that they don't know, so they might not interview as well.
right, and I know certainly plenty of people over in Norwell, and I have had that confirmed, so, my suspicions, so I felt that this was the opportunity to throw that out there, so
Sure.
I
So we thank you.
wanted to pick up and say
Yep.
something, so, thank you.
I'll just, one quick comment. I didn't get the impression that either one could care less about the residents.
Yeah, I think-
Both of them gave example after example of how they interacted with the residents and programs that they initiated. So, one may have a different personality than the other, but I don't think we have to fear either one of them ignoring the residents.
No, and one of the questions that I had when I reached out to some folks, the first question was, can you tell me how he interacts with the residents, for both of them? So to double check on that. And it was expressed that open door policy, straight shooter, you may not always hear what you want to hear, but you're gonna get the truth. And I don't think we could ask for anything more than that. Because unfortunately, we hire the town administrator to make tough decisions on our behalf sometimes. So as long as the message is delivered respectfully, they listen, they're willing to speak to the residents and listen to their concerns and take those into consideration, that's how I evaluated that response, and that's what's important to me. Yes, sir. Name and address.
Tom Thompson, 149 Gilson Road.
Hi, Tom.
Glad to be here. I think that a lot of folks in town didn't believe that the former town administrator considered a lot of the concerns of the residents. And I know you folks were very supportive of her. So I think that this expression and others that maybe aren't prepared to speak have a similar concern that, and I know that you folks probably talk behind your offices before you come out and present your positions here tonight. So I think there's a legitimate concern that the new town administrator is being selected because he's one town over and has a little bit more experience, whereas there might be a younger individual that has some more dynamic ideas, but there's a transfer involved. So I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I just, perhaps on behalf of people that aren't prepared to articulate that, I would like to articulate that. And I think there was some concern that the former town administrator wasn't as locked in with the residents of the town as they were with the select people.
So, I can speak to that, Mr. Thompson. I think we did a lot of research as a board, speaking with residents and department heads over the past month. And we understand where we were 15 years ago, and we understand where we were on September 15th. So we fully recognize, and I hear what you're saying, of what we need to take us forward. Your comment that this is already a predetermined before we got here tonight, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I can't tell you how close I know I am with regards to Mr. Sweet and Mr. Boudreau, and that's why we're here tonight, articulating this in open session with all of you.
And I appreciate
Because-
the transparency and the clarification.
Because they
Thank
both
you.
come,
And
as I said,
And I
You have to-
apologize if there was
No.
an inference otherwise.
I accept that.
Thank you.
I don't. I think it's offensive that you said it, and I
He
think,
apologized.
Tony, I apologize. Thank
yeah,
you.
it's just, there's just no place for it. Do we sound like we've colluded on this and?
I think I clarified my position. Thank you.
Okay. Like I said before, Kevin's a rising star. For me, it's the longevity that the person has been in the job. And I think we have a lot of unique issues here. I think his emergency management skills are terrific. He's well-educated, he's well-versed, he is highly respected. I take nothing away from him. But at the end of the day, when I leave this room, I want to know that I did right by the citizens and by the staff. And either one could be the right person, but at the end of the day, I have to at some point go to my gut.
And,
So-
and again, through the chair, I've had to go through a similar exercise, and I know what's involved in this process. And I respect the work that's been done here. So I don't want to, in expressing an opinion, discount all of the work that's been done by the selectmen, select people, and the staff around. So if that was interpreted, again, I apologize.
Thank you. And just so you know, we reached out to the staff. The staff were highly engaged in the questions that we asked and the categories that we asked. I think if you ask any one of them, they will feel that they were very much a part of this process. First time I've seen you at a meeting in a while, so I'm not sure how much you watch, so.
I'm
just-
representing the town of Scituate all over the world, believe me.
Sure you are.
But and again, this is where we get into some trouble, so maybe I'm being more provocative than I need to be. Madam Chairman, I apologize for not directing this through you. So there's been a lot of comments about the staff is on board, the staff's really supportive of the staff, and I get that's really important because this is the person that's responsible for everybody.
Not that the staff is on board with our choice, that the staff is on board with our process.
That's what I meant.
And, okay.
That's what I meant for clarification. However, so I guess the next challenge will be to get the same level of confidence from the residents and citizens of the town. That's the only thing I would say.
Have we chosen yet?
No.
No.
Right, so
I
I
have
don't
to,
think-
I mean, the process that Maura, if you may.
Sure, no, go ahead.
That Maura's talking about, we, all of us, I know individually, have like scoured through to find anyone who knew anything personally about our candidates for that reason. And that includes reaching out to, people we work with professionally that might have had interaction and people that we know in town that would have. And I personally got several calls from people in the community that, saw the paper, saw the candidates and knew something.
Right.
So those have all been factored in as well, because that clearly, one of the things when we were going through the interview process with, Phyllis can tell you, when we asked, how do you engage with people? How do you, we got from them how they approached it. And, they had the right answers. And then we tried to backfill that with anecdotal references from people that had experience with them.
And Madam Chairman, through you to the newest member of the Selectmen,
You can ask
I
me.
appreciate the comment.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
I'll make a motion. I'm going to move James M. Boudreau as the next town administrator for the town of Scituate, subject to negotiations of a mutually agreed-upon employment contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion?
No?
No.
None? Said my piece.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So was that, did you say aye?
I
She didn't vote at all.
I know, I didn't think so.
She's learning quick.
That's okay.
Just no.
Yeah. Doesn't matter, no pressure.
I vote no.
Okay. So 4-1 for Mr. Boudreau to move into the negotiation process. Ms. Canfield, in light of the vote that just happened, would you be so inclined to make a motion to unanimously put the board's vote forward for consideration so that that candidate, has the full support of the
Absolutely.
board?
As I said, it took me to the last possible second to make this decision. So I move that the Board of Selectmen move unanimously to support Mr. Boudreau's offer.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you, and I want to publicly say congratulations to Mr. Boudreau for moving to the next phase, and I also want to say congratulations to Mr. Sweet. Mr. Sweet is a fine candidate, and he's going to make some town very proud. He is a rising star, and I hope we have to go through negotiations, so I just want him to know that he is top on our list as well.
I'm just gonna say one more thing before we move on, that's it. When we did this 8 years ago, if you recall, our finalists were 3, but there were, I can't remember, 6 or 8 of them, something like that. We later found out that all those individuals that, obviously besides Tricia, were hired very soon after in other towns. Some are still there today. So, not that it's really our concern, but, they have jobs now and they gonna stay.
They're all good. They're all going to succeed.
That's right.
All right, well, thank you guys for the discussion. Thank you for the input. Appreciate it.
So just so we go to next steps, so we'll be drawing up a contract and speaking to Mr. Boudreau about,
Yep. So we do have executive session at the end of this evening, just to go into, speak about the financial aspect of the contract, so we'll do that at the end of the session as well, because we obviously will discuss that in public. Okay, Kevin, discussion and vote for easement of the seawall.
You sure it's dead already? Just,
Good evening.
okay, yeah.
One easement, 2 contracts, pretty straightforward. Couple meetings ago, we voted on extending the seawall, and this is just the acceptance of the easement for 68 Oceanside Drive.
Okay. We just need a motion for that.
It's just a motion to accept it, and then we'll proceed with everything
I got
else.
I got it.
Have a motion?
I'll move the Board of Selectmen vote to accept the grant of easement of a gift, as a gift for the consideration of less than $100 for the property located at 68 Oceanside Drive, Scituate, Mass.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
The next item I have is for a contract to replace a water truck, which was a 2005 Chevy Colorado with 127,000 miles and a broken frame, I believe. We received money
Gee, why do you want to replace it?
through last year's capital to purchase another truck, $40,000. The water department's worked with our mechanics and come up with a 2018 2500 utility body and plow for $39,680.88.
So it's, I was going to say, so this is a truck, not a van?
It's a truck.
All right. I understand, is there a van that's also, Kevin, that we're going to need to take a look at replacing?
We have a van and we have another truck in the water department. We've got a couple trucks that have been.
No, I'd heard that one of the vans had actually, the gas tank dropped, and it's no
It did.
longer functional. So I'm like, are we on top of that to get that replaced?
It's in the capital plan for next year,
For
yes.
next- Well, do we have something in the interim so that at least they have something
They're using another vehicle to get by.
to be able to? Okay. All right.
And what do we do with the old truck?
We will either auction it off or scrap it. It depends to the extent. If the frame's usually broken, we try to scrap them because we don't want somebody trying to fix it and reuse it.
Motion?
Sure.
Just one more question. So we appropriated 40,000 last spring.
Came right under.
Yes, that was my comment. So do we get less of a truck, or did they see they had 40,000, it was really 30, so they,
Yes.
it's a state bid, I know.
No, we went off the
Plymouth
state
County,
bid.
right?
We went off the state bid package,
Right.
and we looked at we also looked at a Chevy. The Chevy was 46. They made some, they looked at the truck. I mean, could we have got a We could always get bigger trucks, but this'll take care of their needs of what they need.
Realize that.
You know, it's got the plow package. We
Doesn't
can
come with
also,
doesn't have a plow, though?
it does have a plow. There's a plow included in that
Okay.
package.
All right.
Backup alarm, cornering lights, and a Reading service body. So it'll be a typical utility body with a plow,
Okay.
a 2,500, 4x4.
All right. Anything else,
Good,
John?
Sean?
Nope, that's,
Move the Board of Selectmen award the contract to purchase a 2018 Ram 2500 utility body to Central Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram for $39,680.88.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canfield. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is the award to a contract to GE Betts Incorporated for the MedClear product. Probably about 6 weeks ago, we came and we did a little presentation about how we're going to use it to treat the copper that's coming out of the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. So this is the MedClear product and the setup to get that enacted and get that going at the plant.
Now, this is just for a pilot, though, right? The 30,000?
It's part of the pilot product, yes.
Do you know how long this will last, or what?
What we can do is we can use the remaining product if it goes into.
So we're just testing to see if this works?
We're testing to make sure it works. What we've done is we met with the DEP and actually the EPA already, and we actually have a letter of support from them already that they're, that they don't have any issues with us at this time pursuing this measure, which is good because our NEPD's permit expires in November. So this is part of the plan to get it accepted in the long term with the pilot study.
How long does the pilot take place for?
It depends on the results and
Okay.
how well the results come out, and then interpretation of the results from there. If they come out great, it would be shorter. If they're not as good as we expect, it might take a little longer. And there'd be modifications of how much product you add and how much you don't.
Okay. Any other questions for Kevin? No? Motion?
Will the Board of Selectmen award the contract to supply MetClear 2405 to the Scituate wastewater treatment plant to GE Betts, Inc. for a not-to-exceed amount of $30,000?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dennehy. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Anything else for Kevin? No?
No, thanks, Kevin.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the wind turbine discussion regarding analysis results. Is Jennifer here?
She was.
She was.
She's coming.
Someone, can you grab Jen? Okay, great. Hi, Jen. So thank you. So I know Jennifer and Al together, I think, have been pulling together some analysis with regards to some of the noise complaints from the residents up on Third Cliff area there. So I don't know if you want to go through it.
We have
I'm
extra
sorry?
copies of the.
Oh, are they in the public? Is there extra copies if anybody wants to read the analysis?
did you print that?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I have it here. I'm sorry. I have it right
If
here.
somebody
Yeah,
wants,
thank you.
if somebody wants it, sure, absolutely. So you can see what we're looking at.
Yeah, it's pretty technical.
Do you want me to give a summary, the background?
Yeah, that'd be great, Jen, thanks.
So in September of 2014, the Board of Health started to track correspondences received from the residents, identifying weather conditions that were impacting them relative to the turbine. So we tracked the data for approximately 20 months, and the majority of the correspondences indicated that the wind was coming from the southwest direction at 10 miles an hour or less. So based on that, the Board of Selectmen authorized a pilot program to allow Scituate Wind to turn off the turbine between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. during the summer months, when the wind was out of the southwest at less than 10 miles an hour. At the end of the summer, the shutdown period allowed for a 65% reduction in the number of correspondences received from residents compared to the year before.
So
it had
65% reduction in the number of complaints.
over that summertime
That
period.
summertime, okay.
Yep, from 16 back to 2015.
Okay,
So that
led the Board of Selectmen to vote in October of 2016 to continue to move that program forward to the current summer season, which we're in. I continued to track the data and broke it up here in 2 data sets. The first data set being from October 16th to May 31st, which would be what I'll call the non-shutdown period. So after the summer season shutdown ends, but before this current summer season would begin. During that time period, I heard from 9 individuals on 16 incident days. Bless you.
Thank you.
And when I say incident days, I define that as being an overnight period where 1 or more correspondence was received. So if I heard from 1 resident, it counted. If I heard from 9 residents, it counted as 1 night. So based on analysis of the 7.5 months of that data, the wind, speed, and direction as measured at the turbine were primarily from the west-northwest and the northwest, followed by west-southwest and west, with the winds being 28 miles an hour or less. We conducted a cost analysis to determine, based on the majority of the directional related complaints, what would the cost be to the town to mitigate those complaints. And to capture 81% of the incident days, it would cost the town approximately $112,000. This is the winter time period.
Is that what it costs the town, or the town and Scituate Wind?
That's what it would cost the town, because the town would be responsible for projected lost revenue from Scituate Wind,
So we have to pay Scituate Wind? Thanks.
plus the net loss of revenue to the town, i.e. using and selling the electricity generated. So combine those two, and it's approximately $112,000, plus the reprogramming cost, which would be a nominal $1,100. I did the same analysis for the current summer season, noting that the turbine is already shut down when the wind is from the southwest, as measured by the turbine, up to 10 miles an hour. I shouldn't say I stopped the data collection. I stopped the data analysis at the end of August so that I could present in a reasonable time frame this information to you. So between June 1 and August 29th, I received correspondences from 5 individuals on 18 incident days. So in that span of approximately 3 months, the winds were similarly from the west, west-northwest, and northwest, with the wind speed being up to 22 miles an hour. So similarly conducted a cost analysis that if the turbine was turned off between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. each night during this June 1st, the summer period, to capture 100% of the incident days, it would cost the town approximately $52,000. I have continued to track the reports coming in from residents, so I just kind of want to give you just a quick summary of what's happened since August 29th, although bear in mind there's no data analysis for it. I've received 16 additional complaints from 6 residents on 10 nights. So that's not factored into this analysis.
Can you say those numbers again?
Sure. 16 complaints from 6 residents over 10 nights.
Jennifer,
Yes,
one
10 nights.
quick question. When you said it's going to cost $50,000, is that an additional $50,000 or just $50,000?
So the shutdown period, based on the estimated cost for the current southwest wind, was, I believe, approximately $2,000. So nominal. This would be approximately, obviously every year changes a little bit, but this would be an additional $51,360 estimated.
So it would cost the town $150,000 a year about to shut it down for that time period, for the further speed and further directional latitude.
It would be about 163.
And how much do we make a year on that?
About 250.
About 250.
And is that number based on the operational hours that take place during the day? Like, so how, do we have analysis on how often it is up and running during the day? And I guess my question is, you know, it seems like a large portion of the revenue is generated at night, okay? With you know, when we talk about $160,000, right? It's more than, a little bit more than half, not that much more, that comes in between that time. Is it up and operational all the time during the day when it should be? I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm trying to offset, you know, is it operating properly during the day in comparison to what we would lose at night? So I just, what can you share with me with regards to that?
It, with the exception of when they do maintenance, or there's a failure, or you can look at it sometime that it's not running because the wind has shifted and it stops spinning, so it can rotate to a new direction and then commences spinning. But they are generating above the minimum required in our contracts, so they are meeting the contract of operational efficiency. So yes, there's no difference between nighttime or daytime not operating for maintenance or something. Okay. You tend to have stronger winds in the winter in the evenings than you do in the summer in the daytime.
Okay. Karen?
I have just two questions. Jen, these incidents, the report, are they all evening? Or is it, you do, so they're all
Yes.
evening?
Yes, so
Complaints.
I have received a couple of correspondences from residents that have occurred outside of the time frame. So I have received emails saying it's affecting me now and it's approximately 9 o'clock or 2 in the afternoon. I did not include them in the analysis because it wouldn't be part of the shutdown period.
But that's a lot lower typically, that kind of?
I think,
Okay,
give or
sorry to put you on the
take,
spot. Yeah.
I think I've received maybe only 2 or 3 complaints that did not carry within the 11 PM to 6 AM timeframe.
And the other question I had is, Al, I don't, just to try to wrap my head around, we have, between the solar array and the wind turbine, we have excess generated electricity that we sell, is that correct?
We sell excess energy from the solar array.
It's from the solar array, not from?
Correct.
Okay, so any changes, if we potentially made changes, wouldn't
Right.
impact?
Solar way is way overproducing from what we originally
Okay.
expected.
So there's no?
And the turbine is 1 year underproduced, and they paid us for the fact that it underproduced. They were having some trouble with their systems. They fixed that, and so it's producing about as expected.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I don't doubt this noise and disruption, and it seems like you have all of that documented when the calls come in. But at what level? Would that be difficult to measure? Why can't we measure how noisy it is, measure the decibels? Who tested it? Board of Health hired somebody to test it, how loud it was. They predicted it was gonna be so loud when they built it. They built it, and they check it again to make sure it's within the limits that they said. Let's bring them back up. How difficult would that be?
I can address that.
Oh, all right.
The contract required that, well, first of all, the developer had to promise or demonstrate that the project would be within limits, or else it wouldn't continue to operate, so obviously they wouldn't invest in it. So their engineering people made projections. The contract that we wrote included post-construction acoustical testing if there were any feelings that it may not be within limits, okay? Based upon the fact that there were correspondence from some families after the construction, then the board, those complaints went to the Board of Health, who actually is responsible for the noise state regulation, and would be the ones to follow up. This Board of Health then went to the DEP to find out what testing agencies, what testing companies were authorized, capable of doing the testing, got names of several. The Board of Health then, contrary to what you saw recently in the newspaper, the Board of Health actually hired the testing, selected and hired the testing agency. And then the testing agency protocol for testing against the times when there were complaints, conditions that seemed to cause complaints, that protocol was then reviewed by the DEP, and the DEP said, yes, this is the right way to do this testing. Then that testing, and then there were some residents who paid for an additional service that would come out and do some testing parallel to the testing paid for by the town. And that testing actually took place. It took about 18 months to complete the testing because the conditions that were specified were fairly hard to find. Anyway, the tests were completed, and the results as measured were well within the state limits. So we could go out and hire, at some cost, a testing agency, an engineering firm, to go out and do the testing again. If you feel like there's an issue that it needs to be tested further.
I don't know how the guys feel.
Well,
Do you have any comments?
I think regardless of the testing, whether it's within the means or not within the means, there are people that are complaining about the noise. And just based on the numbers, there's clearly less individuals than incidents, so it's the same people calling on multiple nights. I've been up there, I've listened. Sometimes I hear something, sometimes I don't. I'm never there at 2 in the morning when there's no traffic or it's dead silent up there. We're trying to do what we can to make it best scenario, but it's almost getting to the point where it's going to be a losing monetary situation where, which is why we got into this, was to be green and to create additional revenue for the town. And as Mr. Doherty said, the testing is, it's kind of subjective, I guess, to some level in terms of what is the right or what is the wrong. We're going by what the state says, but I think that they say, it's a new science. Nobody really knows. So I don't know the solution. I know we're gonna expand the time, expand the wind speed, expand the directional thing. But is that even gonna solve the problem? Is there still gonna be, no matter what it is, there's gonna be a certain number of complaints in terms of it. And I'm wondering whether Scituate Wind should be participating in some of the expenses here, and it shouldn't be all in the town. If there is some, what would it take to trigger them to have to pay to deal with some of the expenses that are incurred from this? The contract. I guess we can talk about that at a later time, but a lot of it is just paying the revenue to them for lost energy. There may be some clause in the contract that said, for a complaint such as this, that there should be some relief from the town for that, or whatever the.
There are clauses in the contract that say if they're not, they're an investor with regulations in existence, they sought all the appropriate permits. They are operating within all parameters of the permits. We approach them and say, stop running your business. It'd be like asking a concrete pipe, say, to not work on Tuesdays for whatever reason. They're going to lose income from it, and they've got an investment they expect to get income back from. So we would be interfering with a contract. It'd be like any contract we've made, that we would say, we want you not to do something that we've given you a contract to go do. If we did it unilaterally, they would come back at us and demonstrate that we were violating the contract, I would think. So,
Well, how did we amend it this past time, just because it was a pilot?
I'm sorry?
We amended it in the past year. We already made one amendment and asked them to not operate between.
Well, we paid them
11.
for it.
We paid them for it.
That's my question. We
It
paid
wasn't
them
a
for that?
contract. We asked them to do that, and they agreed to do it.
Well, I mean, I didn't say it was a contract,
Oh,
but
yeah,
that
okay.
we had an agreement, right?
Yeah, I mean, they would agree to, they will agree to do what you ask, but they're not going to, I would expect, say, and they'll pay for it.
In the.
We could ask 'em, but-
When I reviewed the contract, there was a clause for public health issues, but it was more like the thing was gonna fall down on you, and we could take it over, but as Al said, as long as they're within compliance, which it is, according to the state, it's our responsibility, and we would bear the cost, is what I understand.
And
But
that's
they
what these
would-
costs are that you've outlined. Those are the costs that we
Yeah.
would bear, that we would have to pay back to
We
Situate
did.
Wind.
These,
It will
of
be.
these costs, about, I would say, about 60% of the $111,000 is money
They would get.
That's what we paid
that
them.
we would owe them for not operating,
Gotcha.
based upon the power that we would have bought from them. And the other 40-some-odd thousand, $48,000 is what we earn from the national grid for producing the power and putting it on the. And that's, the 48,000 a year is what we're getting. I'm sorry, $250,000 a year is what we get net from the turbine produces electricity. We sell that electricity to National Grid. They pay us for it, and then we in turn pay Scituate Wind for their cost, for the contractor cost for them to operate.
And our net gain is 250. you're
Yes,
saying.
our net gain for the year is 250.
So the loss, the shutdown time equals 20% of the annual operation period of that windmill?
Yeah, because you can't, even though it says it's 18 incident days, those conditions, they went back and looked at all the days when those conditions existed and how they would have to shut it down, and therefore how many kilowatt hours would be lost. And the thing is that the turbine also, at 25 miles an hour, you can't turn it off and then 8 minutes later turn it back on again at 20 miles an hour. In other words, it has a cut-in speed that's lower. You follow me?
Yeah.
So as you go up in speed, the amount of time that it has to be off is longer.
Yeah, it just seems strange that we'll get to
Yeah,
you.
don't worry, I'm not giving up to you. Don't worry, put your hand down.
It just seems strange that when we shut it off on an occasional evening in the summer, that constitutes 20% of our total annual income. But,
10%.
well, if we're gonna lose
In summer.
we're gonna lose $50,000.
No, but of that 29 is what we pay them.
Well, I'm looking at the number above it that we already,
Oh, okay. Yeah, of that one, right, yep,
yeah, it seems like a lot.
it is.
So is that the most productive time of the year, is the
Yes,
summer
winter is the most
nights?
productive time of the year.
Excuse me?
Yeah, winter is the most productive
Well,
time
this
of the
is
year.
summer,
No, that's the winter.
So that's
but
from,
we're not shutting off in the winter.
The
That's-
winter is the upper one.
So there's two data sets.
Yep.
The first is when we're looking at the cost of $111,000, that would be shutting off the turbine between October 16th and May 31st.
through May 31st.
Yeah, October through May, 11 PM to 6 AM in a series of wind directions, west, northwest, northwest.
But we're not getting complaints in that time period.
Yeah.
Yes, we received correspondences from 9 people on 16 nights in that 7.5 month span. And that,
Do you have
so.
the dates? I'm sorry. The dates, I mean, let's face it, it's probably going to be beginning of October or the end of May when the windows are open, correct?
Right, I mean,
I received one on Christmas Eve. That one I remember wholeheartedly because I checked my email on Christmas Eve. So the dates for the winter time are October 19th. I'm sorry, October 17th, 23rd, 24th, and 30th. November 13th, November 14th, December 13th, December 24th, March 9th, March 16, March 23, April 10, April 15, April 17, April 24, April 29.
And those were all northwest, west?
Those were, bear with me,
Yep.
west northwest, northwest, followed by west and west southwest.
So I think to Sean's point, we could probably eliminate about 75% of that by extending it through October and coming back to what, April or something?
I was just thinking shrinking, you know,
Yeah.
you don't have
Open
the
the
temperature
windows.
for those days, but, warm days and, windows were open.
You can expand your,
We're not gonna forget you're back there.
No, I think
No,
I
no,
can-
no, no,
I-
no, no,
I-
no, 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 no.
I think I can help show a service.
We'll ask you-
In favor of.
Point of
everyone.
order, that we're in a-
Reason I'm at, raising my hand.
Sean?
so you can expand the time frame, as you're suggesting, of the abatement. And right now, we abated starting June 1st through October 15th, right? Jen?
June 1st through October
Yeah.
15th, but you'd also have to expand the wind direction.
Right.
Because right now the turbine shut off at southwest, and none of these came in as
Right,
southwest.
they're all northwest
Right.
now.
Right.
So, to address that, if you look at the second set of data was the June, the new summer data.
Right.
The new summer data now includes other wind directions and speeds than the previous summer, where we didn't
Right.
seem to get any complaints for those. So this new summer data would be a shutdown that would end up, we would lose for revenue 21,000, and we would end up owing Scituate Wind another 29,000. So that's, we would lose, the cost of the town would be about $51,000 in the June through, in the current time frame, June through October, to shut down for all this other new information about new wind days. We've actually got more complaints this summer about the turbine than we did the previous 2 summers when we abated it. For some reason, this summer, we get a lot more complaints from a lot more wind directions than we did before.
Sean, did you have something you wanted to?
No,
No?
no, not right now.
Mr. Thompson, I know you.
So thank you for your patience with me. So, in my experience at 149 Gilson Road, and I can't speak for my neighbors, but the summer months are the most impactful. And particularly when winds are under 10 miles per hour. And the reason for that is that ambient noise is less. And so and it's not a noise, it's actually an acoustical strobe almost effect. And I won't get into the aerodynamic.
No, I actually went, I remember going to South Shore Country Club when this was all starting,
Right.
listening to all of
Right,
that,
so
so I
we
understand.
won't restate all of
Right,
that.
thank you.
So what's interesting is when the town makes the most money is when the wind's blowing, if I recall Mr. Banger's comments, at 20 miles per hour or more. That's not when it's impactful to the residents, because there's an awful lot of other stuff going on.
Mhm.
And when it's cool, folks have their windows closed and so on and so forth. The other thing is that even if the industrial wind turbine is humming along between 8 AM to 9 PM, it's not as impactful because folks are not trying to sleep. Where this creates the most difficulty is when windows are open, ambiance low, we have this strobe and noise and vibration going on when folks are trying to sleep. This is why it's a health and safety issue, all right? And so if I am understanding Ms. Keith correctly, who I've written to many times but I'm going to meet her finally, and Mr. Banger, is that if in fact a lot of the revenue is made between October, April, and May, when there's more wind, more noise, more stuff going on, and people have their windows closed, And the real issue is between, say, May and August and September. I can tell you where I live, Labor Day weekend is the absolute worst. I have no idea why, but Labor Day weekend is terrible. If there was a way to try and negotiate and moderate this, and maybe I've got neighbors that'll slap me across the head because I haven't had a chance to speak with them before, but maybe there's a way to negotiate this somehow. David, perhaps you can.
Wait,
So
no,
wait,
1
wait,
minute,
wait.
no, you can't, so
Sorry.
let's, point of order, so,
I got
what,
if you-
wait,
I haven't had us ask the question yet.
Madam Chair,
Anyway,
just wait.
all right.
Madam Chair, may I add one more thing, please?
no, sir, 1 sec, okay? You can speak in a moment.
Thank you.
I'll go to John, then to you, Al, so you can, I just want Al to have an opportunity to respond to.
Jennifer, what are the complaints that you generally get in April? How many have you had?
In April?
Yeah. And when do they start?
So in April, I received one on the 10th.
Just the numbers, that's all. It starts on the 10th, and then how many do you have?
April goes from the 10th to the 29th and accounts for 5.
How about May, just out of curiosity?
I'm sorry?
How many in May? Just generally, how many do you have in May?
None.
What about September?
So the data I looked at was October to May,
Okay.
and then June
Nothing
through
in
now.
September, and so you're stuck with-
I don't
okay.
have the data from 2 years ago in front of me for September.
What did you have in October, just the month of October?
October of 2016, I had 4 days.
4 days. When was the last complaint you had?
The
In-
very last
In
one?
October, yeah, just out of curiosity.
On the 30th.
Al, question to you on that is, the revenue, or actually, Jennifer, maybe we don't have it. What's the revenue from April until October, generally, that we receive?
That's 6 months?
6 months.
6.
6, yep, 6.
I have that data, I don't have it with me.
Okay.
My sense is it's probably 1/3 of the revenue.
All right, and that would be 1/3 of 250 approximately. And that's the revenue that we're receiving, and obviously, that we would also make up towards, for their lack of, or loss of revenue,
Well, and
right?
that's their revenue as well,
Right.
it's about 1/3 of their revenue. is that.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm all
What
set.
period was that? That 1/3?
April to October.
We track it every month, so we know exactly how much it is. But I'd like to go back to Mr. Thompson's comments. Mr. Thompson is absolutely correct that when the ambient noise is low, it's nighttime, and the turbine's running at about 10 miles per hour speeds, then you can hear a noise. You can hear a noise, okay? And that's exactly what we knew 2 years ago, and exactly what we did was, you elected to shut it down under those conditions. And in the first summer, when we did that as a pilot test, we got comments from the residents that the thing must be broken this summer because we didn't hear it, okay? Hallelujah. Well, in fact, we had shut it down and have this summer shut it down whenever the wind's from the southwest, the offending direction.
Original, yep.
And in that range and in that time of night. Because that's when you can hear, if you hear it, it's because there's no noise around you, it's nighttime, and then there is the potential for hearing the strobe, and it's bothersome to people. So he's right on target, but we've already accounted for that. You're already shutting it down for those things. This is now a new wind direction and higher speeds.
So that's my question, that's what I was gonna ask you. So the complaints are coming in at a higher speed, right? Or are they under?
They're coming in at up to 28 miles per hour in the winter and 22 miles an hour in the summer.
But we shut it off at what?
Southwest.
Southwest.
At what,
up
how many
to-
miles per hour?
Up to 10. 10 and below.
10 or below.
Gotcha.
Can I just?
Just that you were going to respond to me,
Those
yeah.
are the offending
Yeah.
complaints from before.
Yeah.
So we
Go
fix
ahead.
those.
You had asked about September, and
Yeah.
although I don't have the hard data in front of me, I did before I came, since August 29th.
Yep.
This past August 29th, we received 16 complaints from 6 residents over 10 nights.
Gotcha. Yep,
So that
that's what
accounts
you
for
mentioned
this,
earlier.
this September.
Thank you.
Mr. Doherty?
Where do I start? I guess the first thing is to state that probably you'll find that a good number of those complaints come from my house, because I'm probably the only one who's been steadfastly complaining for the last 5 years. I think what happened was when the other residents who had given up, that they didn't think anybody was going to listen, found out that you were actually going to do something, and started shutting it down from, presumably from the southwest. And they said, I'm going to tell them now what the problem is, and maybe they'll do this for me also. Being that the data that you have has never been shared with me, whether it should be or not, I can't really comment whether that's the truth, but I suspect that's what happened. Being that you shut it down presumably from a southwest wind 10 miles per hour or less, which makes a lot of sense, as Mr. Thompson said, that's when you constitute like a wind shear, when it's quiet at ground level, the ambient's really quiet, and the turbine turning, and you hear this noise, this amplitude modulated, the whoosh, 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 and because there's no background noise to muffle it, you hear it, so those conditions are true. If it was shut down during the conditions that I had complained about before, and I would wake up in the middle of the night, the thing was running, I look at it, it's turning out there, and I look at my iPhone and I look at the wind direction, it says southwest, and I can look at it, and I said, yeah, that's maybe southwest, maybe west-southwest, somewhere in it, and it's still turning. So I don't understand when they say that it's been shut down during those conditions, because it sure doesn't look like to me, and I wake up. I don't know, maybe something's lost between magnetic and true, but again, the SCADA data that whenever I call in, that the, and I asked Mr. Shaw, last Saturday about that, whether the turbine is triggered on true data or magnetic north, or true north. And he said, whether he didn't know the answer, whether he didn't want to answer me, it was rather arcane, I don't know what's going on. But the fact remains is, it still turns, it still wakes me up when we're in that quadrant, and it really confuses me, because if it's 22 degrees either way of southwest, that's going to be 45 degrees, which is 1/8 of the compass. I can't understand that how I can be off that much and the thing's still running. There's a lot of questionable areas in here. But Mr. Thompson hit upon a very key issue, that being that when the turbine is turning in the wind, which is laminar over 250 feet in the air and it's quiet on the ground, is usually the lower speeds. What I would like to see, not that it really matters to me how much less the town makes in a windfall amount of money. I could care less if you shut the thing off and you don't make any money, as long as I can sleep. I mean, no degree of money profit, which is windfall, not based upon somebody's salary or hours working, is worth to me the health and the well-being of any of the residents in this town. But if you find that some point, like you say, okay, how much does the town lose in the possible windfall profit that they would make if you shut the thing down in all directions during the summer for like 15 miles an hour to make sure you have a buffer down? I haven't heard those numbers. Nor did I hear any number like, what if you only run it during the day and you shut it off at night? What is the owner of the wind turbine going to charge the town for lost revenue? Which opens up another area of discussion. Mr. Bangert was very clear that there was post-construction testing, which came out of a Board of Health meeting, where presumably the Board of Health appointed the contractor to test. That's true, but what the truth was the owner of the turbine suggested this Tech Environmental to do it, much to the disapproval of the community group, which was involved in that in the steering committee. The community group wanted to have somebody who wasn't connected with the wind turbine business, somebody who didn't do the pre-construction testing like Tech Environmental did it, or the post.
They didn't. They weren't the pre-environmental was Atlantic Design Engineers was Supreme Rental.
I beg your pardon, I'm wrong.
That's right.
But the key issue, there's a lot of questionable behavior.
Point of order. This is getting into a point. Get to your point, Mr. Doherty. If you're going to start lambasting and saying things that are negative about the Board of Health and their reporting and everything, then please get to the point then, okay? Let's not get to start denigrating people. And
I'm not denigrating. You didn't let me finish what I'm saying, sir.
I'm just saying, raise your point and don't start saying there's
Please don't
something
try to
questionable.
predict what I'm thinking or what I'm
You are
saying.
questioning whether or not the town is actively involved with the contractor to try to skew the results.
I did not say that,
Then
imply
get to your
or
point.
infer it in any way, and
Well,
I take
then-
deference from that, and I'm quite offended.
Well, then I take
Stop.
umbrage too.
So, Mr. Doherty,
You've had many time to come here. We've given you a hearing, and I'm interested in the points. I want to hear what the complaints are.
I'm
I'm
telling
not
you
here
that,
about the
sir.
complaints about the reports and that
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Banger
may
and
I
other people
continue?
here.
one moment, right? It's just, we're all here to try to solve a problem, right? And so, just please be respectful in your comments. Everyone is working to try to solve the problems, and we're not going to solve all the technical issues tonight, Mr. Doherty, because I'm not an engineer, and many folks up here are not engineers, and the town has done its due diligence to hire the appropriate engineering firms to help us assess this issue. So, I just, for next steps, I have a personal opinion, there are other opinions on the board. I personally do not want to see residents impacted negatively for their health and wellness. That's where I stand. We have fiduciary responsibilities that we need to work through and understand what that impact is, so everybody can make a well-educated decision on what the next step is. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about, do we go out and have the turbine retested for its noise? Is it time to double check it? It's been up and running for a couple of years. Is that a solution? That may be a solution. Those numbers that you asked for, I agree with you. I think we do need to see what is the impact to our town if it is turned off every night during the summer hours, or whatever those times are.
Just so we're clear, we're using $163,000 of the $250,000 that we make off this by shutting it off in the nominal times that we're doing. So it would become an expense to the town if you do anything much more dramatic.
Right, because it's 100, exactly.
So it's not windfall, there's only so much you make on it.
I understand.
And we want to hear what you have to say. We're having this to try and come to a solution, and we want to listen to you, but just some of the comments, just smooth them over.
Well, it was meant in answer to Mr. Harris's question when he opened up the discussion about testing. I was just trying to point out, there are questionable areas in the techniques in which the protocols are used currently. And they've changed these techniques because of that. They don't notify the wind turbine owner anymore when they're going to do testing. So it eliminates any possible perception that there's collusion anywhere.
So,
You see, that's what I was saying. And that way, nobody could doubt the results, including me, with the new types of techniques they use in testing.
Okay.
I'm just trying to put things have
We get it.
changed
Sure.
since
We get
they
it.
did the testing. I wasn't saying it was collusion.
It's okay.
I laid
Just-
out.
Okay.
there's
Thank
only
you.
limited time, so get to your point.
But I think that we gotta look at, like Mr. Thompson was saying, thinking about not wind direction so much, but looking at speed down.
Well, it's both, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, Karen?
So, we all agree that it's a real thing. It's a real problem, and you guys have been great about, making sure that we're held to task to make sure that we answer these questions. So, glad we had this opportunity to have a whole conversation. In all of this data, which Jen has worked so hard to put together, and I appreciate, in the summer months, it's 18 days, over 3 months, it's 18 days. And the 7 months, it's 16 days. So it's clearly the summer months, for all the logical reasons, are where we're having the most impact. would I like it to go away 100%? Of course, but we don't know how to do that short of costing the town a lot of money. And I think that we saw with the first test, we reduced by 65% the amount of people, and maybe people weren't complaining or not, but we can only go with the data. It made an impact. It clearly made an impact. So maybe the solution is we take it to a lower degree, or to a wider, I don't know whether right words, capture more of the problem in the summer months and try that. It costs $1,100 to program the turbine. Test that to see if it does reduce things before we do something really draconian that impacts both the town. Maybe we take it to the next step and go with, the recommendation of, and I'm getting a little lost on we'll need your turbine to look at this, but, do June to August or June to September. Reduce it a little bit for a bigger range, because you can change it for $1,100.
No, but there's gonna be more.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know, but, and there will be a cost, but rather than okay, let's shut it down every night, maybe there's a compromise, we can test it, see if it does impact. I'm just suggesting as maybe a little step towards trying to help some of the residents without it being, completely a cost to the town.
Just
Tony, one sec. Tony?
So, I think Mr. Doherty has a good point to make sure that the wind turbine is actually shutting off when it's supposed to. Okay, well, if he's looking out his window and sees it spinning at a time frame where he's going on, looking on the Weather Channel or whatever, and sees that the wind is from that direction at that time period, I mean, I know we've asked you to get data that says on the 15th at 2 in the morning, I see it spinning. I think that's a no-brainer. Maybe you've done it already.
Yeah, we did that. The turbine doesn't know what the Weather Channel says, obviously. The turbine knows what the weather is at the turbine, and we've instructed the turbine through software to shut down when those conditions that we predetermine. Because and all the complaints that come in are compared with what the turbine sees at that moment. So it's nothing to do with what is happening at Marshfield Airport or reported with the, like this or whatever. It's what is at the turbine. So the correlation is turbine, wind direction, and moment when complaints occur. So Jennifer and Scituate have come back and looked at, did this thing shut down this summer when it was in the southwest? Yes. There's, and we can see it in the operational log. The thing shuts down when it hits those conditions. So maybe the conditions we've pre-established aren't good enough.
Right.
Too tight.
Right.
But to the when he calls up and says it's spinning on the 15th at 2 in the morning, can we respond to him and say it's spinning because it's?
And Jen, I think Jen's done that all summer.
So you say it's not coming from the southwest or something, or there's some of
It's
those,
coming from the
what
north-northwest.
parameters not being met?
Northwest.
So let me back up, and this wasn't a complicator that I wanted to add to the discussion, but I will. So when I started tracking this data, I originally started tracking the data from our closest official weather point, which is the Marshfield Airport. What is the wind speed and what is the direction at the Marshfield Airport? And in order to understand what the turbine was seeing when each of these complaints were coming in, we needed to know what the turbine was seeing. So I did two things. I tracked the wind speed and direction for the time periods and the nights that were impacting people with the Marshfield data. At the same time, I would send Scituate Wind my data and say, can you tell me what the turbine sees at the same point in time? So that when Mr. Doherty and his neighbors are seeing southwest on their phone, what is the turbine seeing? So that we can make sure that when he's seeing southwest, we know what the turbine would need to be programmed to do to correlate with what he's seeing on the ground. So I'll give you just one example, but it's somewhat consistent. I'll use October 17th, 2016. The wind speed
out of Marshfield was 8.1 to 10.4, west and west-southwest. The turbine was seeing wind from the west-northwest. And this is pretty consistent, that when Marshfield's data was west-southwest, the turbine was seeing west-northwest. So I did my best to identify both what he was recording and what his neighbors were providing to me, what our closest official weather station was providing, and what the turbine was providing.
So you're saying,
So
the-
I have all of that.
so the direction was off. So,
It's just a different,
The
it's just
direction of the
measuring.
ground
right,
is
So
different than
he-
the direction.
no, I understand.
So if he's
So
seeing
we're-
south, so if he's
So
seeing
it's not shutting off
southwest-
because it's saying the wind's from the north when we think it's from the south, and it should be in the parameter.
Because that's what the complaint was previously, and that's
Right.
when we programmed it to be shut off, was from the south, when actually the complaints are more when it's coming from the north.
Right.
So we were in compliance shutting it off according to the pilot, but it wasn't being perceived as such because the registration of the wind direction at the top was actually coming from a different direction.
Right.
So that's where we are today. No, I'm not making an excuse, I'm
No, but
just
that-
saying.
no, I see
Mr.
it.
Doherty,
I see
but
it.
that's, and that's why we're here today, say, okay, we recognize that now we've got issues from the southwest and the northwest, and what are we gonna do about that?
Right, but if it's coming from the north, those propellers are facing not towards their houses, it's
It's
facing.
northwest.
Or whatever.
Well, it's a difference.
I think I see it now that this is the first time anybody's ever shared the SCADA data with me. There's a 15-degree magnetic declination, and the weather reports we get from Marshfield and I get on my phone must be magnetic. And at that present time, the turbines are coding true, which is 15 degrees to the north, which would be northwest. See? Now I know next time if I call in, I'll correct it to true.
Thanks. Ma'am, 1 minute, Jen, I'm just, she's been waiting patiently. Just your name and address, please.
My name is Valerie Vitale. I live at 34 Driftway on Third Cliff at the top of the hill. And I have been, since the first time I heard the noise, and I called Mr. Banger, and he was so surprised that it was making noise. Through this whole process, I've contacted the health department, I've written you people letters, I've been in the newspaper with the same letter which I have here tonight. I've never gotten a response, except twice when you told me to call to report to the Board of Health. So here we are in this process from the start, hearing noise. I didn't know that there was this is not a scientific survey that the Board of Health has recorded. That nobody said, well, during this period, from this period, Mrs. Vitale family, since you're one of the people who's complained from the beginning, there's going to be data collected on it. I had no way of knowing that this was happening. So, when the spirit moves me, I get up out of bed, like I've done so many times, and write a letter to the Board of Health and say, the turbine is making a lot of noise tonight. Not once have I ever gotten a response to that. I have a letter here that I sent to people 2 years ago. I don't even know if you got it. You should have a postcard printed that says, hi, we received your correspondence. Because I just don't know that you ever pay attention. I probably am the complaint, yes, it's worse in the summer because we have our windows open. Not anymore. I'm probably the complaint on Christmas Eve because after everybody went to bed and it was all nice and quiet in my closed window living room, which faces the turbine across the bowl of the Scituate Country Club, which amplifies it, there was a turbine noise, Christmas Eve. So it's not just the summer. And we've been living with it. And the reason I haven't been calling every night is because if I can possibly go back to sleep, I do. If I can't, I take some kind of medication so that I can be functional the next day. We both have sleep issues. Maybe we would have had them anyway. We don't know. But we've been living with this problem. And I hear about how, oh, gee, we're in a bind because we'll have to pay the developer back. Well, from the start, this seemed like a strange proposal to us. So here we are, how many years later, and we still have the noise. We live in this home that we've had for 36 years. and it's not the peaceful place that it once was. And I choose not to call every night or call every time because I can't live my life screaming at you and telling you that this was a mistake. I can't live like that. You know, I love my home, I love my property. I have to take all the peace I can get out of it. But it is a problem. It continues to be a problem. It's worse in the summer, but there are nights in the winter with all the windows closed, new windows, up to date, everything. When that house, I can't even describe it. It's a plane circling that never lands, and it's a vibration. It's a vroom. And people say, oh, is it the sound of the blade? No, it's the sound of the turbine. It's like an engine. And I feel that when the engine is facing our house, not the blades, because I feel like the blades are pushing the noise at us. You know, they're pulsing the noise from the engine towards our homes. So, you know, I'm nervous to speak to you tonight. I don't want to live my life saying, well, we have this beautiful home and peaceful place, and it's not that anymore. I don't want to accept that. So I don't come before you, but I would have liked to have known that this was data being collected and not just a message being sent off in the night, never to be responded to. And the only person who responded to me twice, and that's the only time I've had any kind of, no one from the town has come and said, well, let me stand on your front porch and hear this. We've never had anybody respond to us. That's all. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you. All right, so let's come up with next steps. I think we.
So I have a question I'd like to ask, and that is, I'd like to know, what's the cost if it's shut down completely from mid-April to mid-October? It's the first thing I'd like to know.
Nighttime or all time?
Just nighttime.
Just
Just nighttime, from 11 till 6.
All directions, completely shut down?
Completely shut down.
April, mid-October?
Then the second thing I'd like to know is, if it's shut down from mid-April till mid-October, just from southwest, which we already know, but also northwest, so basically from north to south.
We'll get that.
And that's what I'd like to know for cost.
This is the
John,
Yeah.
can you say that again?
general.
Yep,
Nighttime,
mid-April,
all directions,
mid-October.
Mid-October to mid-April to October, and then what was the second?
Second one was
North
from
to south.
north to south, going from
Southwest,
northwest
west,
to
northwest.
southwest, to west to southwest, around the
Same,
compass.
mid-April to
Two
You got it.
two times. Anything else, John?
Nope. I don't want to.
Al, this is mechanical. It's been 6 years. Can they look at it and see if it's making more noise than it was when it was first new? I mean, everything wears out, so that, maybe something simple to look at and measure.
I think we're good, Mr. Doherty. Okay, just really, honestly, I think we have some good action
I have
steps.
another option for you.
Okay. I mean, I think those are two good things to look at that John suggested. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to see?
Madam Chair, may I just offer a thank you?
Excuse me?
May I just offer a thank you?
Yes. Thank you for that.
So, as you know, we've been
Yeah.
very.
It's a long thank you, isn't it?
We got the thank you.
No, I promise I'm gonna stay in my lane on this one. So, I'm very encouraged under your leadership with the conversation that we've had this evening. And Ms. Keefe, I appreciate the diligence and the work that you and Mr. Banger have put into this. I am honestly encouraged. So let's work the problem, let's get to the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
And when do you want this data back?
Well, how long will
This
it take you to?
evaluation?
How long will it take to pull that together?
Next meeting, I mean,
I
it's
mean,
historical
yeah.
data, right?
In all honesty, with my other workload, I'm not convinced that I could get this to you by the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
about the
that's
next one.
okay. Yeah, we want to get it accurate. So, we'll figure out how we can
Figure that out.
work through that. All right? Okay, thank you for clarifying that expectation. All right. Thank you.
Next item.
Thank you. All right, next item, discuss vote continue to the Hummerock Seafood liquor license application. Humrock Seafood Restaurant still is pending a hearing with the planning board, which has been moved till October 26th. So if I can have a motion to approve a continuance?
Actually, I'd like to have a discussion on that before we do.
Absolutely.
Oh, 1 second, guys.
Excuse me, guys. Jen, you guys can take that outside, that would be great.
So my feeling on it is that, I don't mind continuing it because they're in the midst of planning board, but I think we need to have a resolution. If they're in the midst of planning board, they filed, I'm like, they should withdraw it and then come back to us in the future if that's what they want to do. Because this has been going on since, August, what they did? And what I don't like is when people come in and they say, okay, I want to get a license and try to encumber it. Obviously, they don't have their ducks lined up. Get your ducks lined up, come in, we'll deal with the licensing of it. So I'm like, this is...
That's a good point.
And so my feeling is, if they want to go forward with it next time, if they haven't finished with planning board, so be it. Otherwise, I would recommend maybe we send a letter saying then they withdraw it and then come back when they're ready and they have everything lined up. But that would be my...
So they don't tie up a
So they don't
possible
tie up.
You got it.
license.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good point.
So if they're not ready by the November 7th meeting, we also can cancel.
Either we're either going forward with the hearing as proposed, or they withdraw it. That would be my feeling on it.
So for now, you're okay with?
Yeah, I have no problems, because they haven't had notice to be here.
Right.
I'm sure they'd show up, but I think we need to have some kind of resolution on this.
I told them they didn't need to show up tonight, in fairness to them.
Right, no, and I wouldn't do that to one anyways. I'm just, what you did is fine, I just wanted to say, next time I think we should deal with it in one way or the other.
Motion?
So a motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the continuance of a public hearing for a new all-alcohol license application for Humrock Seafood Limited Liability Company doing business as an Article, it's double.
2.
Nautical 2, thank you, till November 7th, 2017, Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Second.
Second by Mr. Danahy. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thanks, John.
I'll get that letter out.
All right, the next thing on the agenda is to discuss and vote and close the special town meeting warrant. We all have copies of the warrant before us. I think we also have selected background information with regards to the warrant. Al, there was an addition today to the warrant. So,
Article 15?
Article 15?
Yes. The chief of police has recommended an article, what I agree with, and offer for your consideration. An article that causes with the state now adopting the recreational marijuana law.
Right.
Basically to have the town policies for open use of marijuana to mirror that of open use of alcohol.
Okay.
So that's, this particular write-up is based upon, and vetted by our attorney, but it's based upon language established by the Department of Public Health, and it's been adopted by other oceanfront communities, including Marshfield.
It has been?
So we're not
Okay.
hoeing new ground here with this one.
Basically says you can't smoke in public.
You
Right.
cannot drink in public, and you cannot use marijuana in public, yeah,
Right.
yes. Well, not smoke,
Or
Public
whatever.
consumption of marijuana or THC.
yeah.
For clarification of what
That
smoking
would
means.
include on the property owned by or under the control of or maintained by the town of Scituate, which would be streets, sidewalks, public ways, footways, passageways, stairways, bridges, parks, playgrounds, recreational areas, boat landings, public buildings, schoolhouses, school grounds, cemeteries, parking lot, beaches, and sand spits.
Yeah, it's like alcohol. You can't consume alcohol in the public.
Right.
Same thing with this, now that it's been legalized, no marijuana or
It's
THC.
not speaking to the merits of marijuana or the merits of alcohol, it's just
It's just
saying,
not in the public domain.
Right. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about any of the other warrant articles that are on here? I don't know if we want to go through them at all. Nancy?
I've been holding on before Kevin Kelly
Oh, for what?
for article number 4.
Oh.
In case you had questions about it. because
Sure.
Oh, then we have some
let's let it
questions.
go. Okay.
I have prepared for anything, I just happened to see him and
but I'm here.
begged him not to leave, because I tried to put together what you had requested at the last meeting, after talking to him and the golf director, the golf course, Director Bob Sanderson. But I don't know where the board wants to go, and I don't know if you even want the tenth article at all. So, before poor Kevin can escape.
So Kevin, what would you do for $255,000 to that parking lot?
Building and accessibility, right?
I can speak to that, Kevin. Are you?
No, go right ahead.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
I'm happy to, no, I don't have any thunder.
Okay,
I'll be the lightning.
I likewise met with Bob. As you know, the bond has been paid off, or will be paid off shortly, and they will have approximately $380,000, $350,000 of debt service they will no longer have to contribute or pay. So it's the time to turn the corner with the golf course and say, how can we retain the existing players and grow the people who are enthusiastic about playing at the golf course? And the feedback and analysis has been that there's a number of things that need to happen. They have a parking problem, okay? First of all, this would include parking lot, looking at parking lot improvements, street appearance improvements, what do you call that?
Curb appeal.
Yeah, curb appeal. And he said that's a big distraction for people who have driven through Scituate for something, to see a parade, and they see that golf course, but it looks less than
First
appealing.
impressions. First
Okay.
impressions.
The third thing is to replace the 20-year-old irrigation system that was installed. The irrigation system that was installed to be used with a very green-friendly grass. Use less water to maintain the grass, okay? That was an experiment back in the time when the golf course was built, late 1990s. The town actually got an award for being the first all-green golf course because it used so much less water to sprinkle. It has to do with how many pipes are in the ground and the sprinkler heads and everything else. It's time to replace the sprinkler system anyway. It's got a 20-year lifespan. We've exhausted it. You know, if it breaks, it's going to cause more deterioration of the greens. I'm not a golfer, so I don't really care, by the way. Except I'm in a.
We already allocated that though, right?
Yeah. Well, but you have to do some engineering for it. And the fourth thing is, there was apparently a proposal put together by an architectural firm to modify the clubhouse, make minor but seemingly impactful modifications to the clubhouse, which would move the restroom facility out of the restaurant, put it out to where it's more accessible to the golfers, where there's more China facilities than there are now to meet the needs of the golfers. Secondly, then, you know where the tented area is on the, enclose that so you create a greater indoor space, and then on the side facing the marshes, extend a patio out there, like a deck.
Yep.
Okay, that could be used for restaurant purposes, and also enjoy the view with just simply an awning over it. It would improve handicap accessibility because right now the accessible route is up that crushed shell path into the pro shop, down a long hall, around and into the restaurant. This would enable them to come up and come in right onto the restaurant terrace and go on in. So those are the ideas they have. I think this is an article to hire an engineering architectural firm to look at those and then put together a package up to and including pricing, recommendations on how to finance it, and how to go to bid.
So this is a combination of funds for that analysis and $225,000 to take care of the parking lot improvements. That's what it says. The remaining $225,000 is the estimate provided for parking area improvements, including the contingency for drainage, if work is required by the Conservation Commission.
Oh, that's 3.
So
So
it's not all study, it's due as well, as you pointed out, Madam Chairman.
Now, look here. This one, 4, Widows Walk improvements, 255, and then you've got your backup.
The purpose of making parking area accessible, design and engineering.
Right, and then
Okay.
this is the detail.
So
All right, so
that's
it's
really-
just engineering.
It's engineering's 30.
Right,
It's
I'm
sturdy.
just summarizing what
Okay.
that 255 is.
Yeah, I have no problems with this. I think this is long overdue. I'd like to get things started with it. 30,000 for engineering, to look at the clubhouse as a whole. It does have to be accessible. It's not. I've seen people get injured because they've tripped over it. Kevin, we've talked about it, and Kevin's saying, that it's got to be dealt with. It was not intended, so I think we might as well do it. We've got 225 to deal with the curbside appeal. There's no doubt that can be fixed anyways and improve it. So I think it'd be great to put it to the voters right now and see what they want to do,
Nancy, where's the 255 coming from?
It would have to be borrowed. They're not going to have it as retained earnings. It would have to come from borrowing.
Okay.
Before you long-term borrow it, you could rescind it and pay it off with estimated receipts the following year.
Good, okay.
Or after that, after this year, they should have retained earnings again because they don't have that debt service, but they have
Right.
to collect the revenue.
Good.
Okay. Sean?
To Al's point, what do you think that would do? Spend this much money and who knows, might boost revenue, weather permitting, It's long overdue.
No, I'm fine. I think it's long overdue.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah.
Like John said, this is just a first phase. This was Rick's, intention just to start. It was gonna be built out.
One thing to keep in mind, too, when we're looking at the parking lot, is the opportunity to make sure that we have an eye on the outdoor hockey rink that they've been using. I know, I'm not sure whether, I don't want them to say you can't use it out there, because it hasn't been too successful, but I'm like, you never know.
Did it last year or not? Did they not do it last year, Tony? I think it just fell on
I don't
just
think,
two.
they did it for 2 years. I don't think they did it last
No.
year.
But that's
Just a
great
thought,
idea,
that's
yeah,
all. Just
definitely,
keep that
'cause
in mind.
It's all the same idea. It's recreation, and in the winter, it's a great time.
All right, any other questions for, so Al, did you want to add anything?
Are we done with the golf course thing? 'Cause I was gonna make-
I just want to let Kevin go if we didn't have any questions for Kevin. Poor Kevin.
Yeah.
No, that's all right, thank you. You're all still here.
What Bob Sanderson has said that the golf course, right now, it's not a golf course that you're maybe happy to bring your business associate to because you like to play golf. It's a challenging course, but it has some needs to look more attractive because there are competing golf courses around. He said he thinks the best way to build revenues at the golf course at this point is not necessarily having it be an events golf course or a function golf course with a function hall, but rather build just everyday usership by people coming more often and bringing friends to do it. He said fundamentally, we don't have enough parking for there to be a morning event on a Saturday and then still get cars in for the people who want to use the course on Saturday afternoon. If we want to do something with an event as a venue, we're going to have to create more parking somewhere in the immediate area.
Couldn't we extend it towards the transfer station driveway?
What?
Couldn't we extend the parking lot towards the transfer
Yes.
station driveway?
There's a possibility there. Or up in that little platform up there where
So when we
they
do that.
practice, I don't know what to call
have a
that.
Look at that too.
I don't know, but anyway.
Driving.
There are some opportunities, but those are,
Well,
those,
that's with a-
his belief is, let's first do the modest improvements to the clubhouse to make it good for the people who want to come there, and then they'll want to bring their friends. Fix the curb appeal, fix the parking, and then improve the greens through a better irrigation system. And that'll start the ball rolling, and then eventually it can become an event thing, and, okay.
Okay.
I did tour it yesterday, and he did say that if you do enclose and expand that, the catering function, that you can attract leagues and, enhance just the golf. Forget about special events. You can have more golf events there because you can accommodate more people in the
little bit more.
building.
Okay,
So I think it's a great idea.
awesome.
While we're on the
Do we
golf.
want to go through this? Let's go through it. Thanks. Let's just start at the top, okay? Just so we don't have to bounce all over the place.
Is this meeting supposed to go through every one of these?
have to
If we
close
are,
the
we should
warrant.
take a break, for 2.5 hours. I'd like to take a break, if that's okay. It's gonna take us a while.
Is that the intention tonight, Al, is to vote every one to I mean, we have.
No, we don't have to vote it
Oh.
tonight, but I didn't know if you had any questions.
Oh,
And then we can take a break, if anybody has any questions on
well,
this.
what's left?
Or do you just want to close the warrant? And I just wanted to bring to your attention that there was that added one on there as well. So if you don't have any more questions with regard to what's on here, we can close it.
Well, what's number 3? reducing the stabilization by 150 or 170,000?
So last year, around, here before you around this time of the year, to update you to the fact that due to the drought, that the revenues at Widows Walk were drastically off. And that did not improve over the fiscal year, and they did have a revenue deficit. It hasn't been certified yet by the DOR, but my estimate is $135,000 deficit. So our requirements are that we have to resolve that deficit this year. One of those ways would be a special town meeting vote to resolve it from free cash. Another way would be to resolve it from their own estimated receipts. So this would be to reduce the money that we set aside at the April town meeting in estimated receipts to the Widows Walk Capital,
Capital
Widows Walk
stabilization.
Capital Stabilization Fund, to offset that deficit. Or we cannot do that and you could fund it from free cash. Either way, we have to come up with a solution, and we may still take a free cash hit because the DOR may say, okay, that's great, you're gonna do this, but we're just gonna hold this amount of your free cash and just not let you use it until we're sure you've actually done it.
Where'd we get the 185?
The other issue that we have is that we estimated what our receipts are going to be from the restaurant income, and our new lease is a lower dollar amount, and the current tenant paid their first year of rent in advance. So we're only going to receive part of a year's rent in fiscal 18, and it's going to be less than we have in the past. So if we're going to do something to resolve one deficit, we might as well avert a potential deficit by taking care of the amount of rent we're not going to get. If it was just the lowered rent, I'd say, well, I wouldn't worry about it. We could check back with it in the spring, seeing how our receipts are coming in. But where we already have a revenue deficit that we have to deal with from a prior year, if things work out great and we're running well over estimates, we can still make adjustments at the spring special or the spring annual to put money back into that capital stabilization fund. Or you can decide you don't want to do this at all and don't do anything, and it'll have to be raised in the recap.
But the money can
Where
only
will
be put back into the stabilization if we take it from there. If we take it from free cash, we can't take it from the receipts of the golf course to put it back in, right?
Right. But where did we get the 185 to put in Widows Walk Capital Stabilization?
I'm sorry, because we don't have any debt service this year, at the last April town meeting, we voted to put $185,000 of estimated receipts into that.
For fiscal year 2017?
2018.
18. So we're just reducing what we wanted to put in there in the budget.
Right, because we did end up with such a deficit.
So we've got to use the interest payment that we're not paying in 2018 to cover the operational deficit.
Correct. And that's if the board so sees fit to do that. The board may have other ideas on how they want to resolve that, where it was such a dramatic incident, that kind of a drought.
Well, I think it should come out of the golf, I don't think free cash should do it. I think it should come out of the golf course enterprise fund. It's got the money there. Just the capital projects will probably be delayed for a year.
I agree. I think that makes sense. No sense taking it from free cash. It's gonna have the revenue. Use it from there.
Any other questions?
That in Article 9 's gonna come up.
Actually, we went over this, but why don't you explain it?
Okay. So Article 9, back when we issued the very large bond for the building projects in June of 2015, we got a large cash premium, over $5 million, and we had to, at the time, the Board of Selectmen voted to pay down the debt right then and there and reduce the principal. And at special town meeting, 4 months later, town meeting had to basically authorize what the selectmen had done previously and in the previous fiscal year. This article is recommended by bond counsel to say whenever there's a situation where there's a premium, because now the rules have changed in regards to premiums with the Municipal Modernization Act, you now have to either use the premium to pay down debt service or to reduce the amount of debt you issue at the time of the long-term issuance. Before, that was only if it was debt exclusion debt. Now it's all debt, since November of 16. So this says it's up, the selectmen have the authority at the time that they award that bond to say either we're going to use it for debt service or we want to pay down the principal right here and now with any premium we receive, less costs.
So why are we doing it now, retroactively? It's already it's in the past.
Now this affects all premiums.
Going forward, though, prospectively, right?
Going forward, so this article would give you the authority in any future bond award. You wouldn't have to go back to town meeting and ask them which way they wanted to go. You could just say, this is what we're gonna do.
Okay. So we're not going, this isn't to
It's not going retroactive.
correct retroactively what
No,
we've
it's all
done.
to move
Okay, I'm
forward.
with you. All right, that makes sense.
And it's
Sorry, I
because the law
misunderstood you.
changed.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I spoke to Al about it, but I think we should just discuss it. So we,
Poor John wanted a break, but go ahead.
Actually, I'm doing it for Lorraine, because I know in the past we've been going to 3 hours, and I just think it'd be nice to kind of give a break after 2.5 hours sitting down. But I'm happy to finish
we
this.
used to have an article on here about the track, a capital plan to repair the track while they were gonna repair the turf over there at the high school. And
What happened
Al
to
came back and said that the quote was $200,000-300,000 for it.
What was that?
350 was the last quote that came in, the track coach, I believe it was the track coach who spoke to Maura was there at the time, and was talking about the other things that they wanted to do.
The D section.
Yeah, so the scope of the project isn't well defined, and it's gone from 80,000 to 350.
Okay.
So, in talking with Maura, it seems to make sense to get it on the capital plan, get it defined, get it approved, so then it could be approved in the spring for the appropriate amount of money, and then the two things could be done together. So it's not, you don't take it out of use to do one thing, take it out of use to do everything that needs to be done in that area. Because it seems now that there's a potential for making improvements, they're talking about maybe adding a lane, doing the repairs that you talked about in that green section, so it seems like we're rushing, and we don't have a well-defined project, when if we waited a few months.
Just do it right.
Well, the reason why we were rushing is because they're gonna replace the turf. And you don't wanna then tear up the track and ruin the $1 million turf that you just put in.
What's the timing on the turf replacement?
More, if the track is going forward, more would like to wait and do them together in next fall.
Well, we'll have to see.
The reason why I'm saying it is because I'm really strong, I have a strong opinion about doing it right, because it wasn't done right in 2000 or 2001. The track was put in backwards. It lacks it's backwards. Usually you start from the right and you run straight. They started from the left, and you can't do that. It's just not accurate. So the question you run into is that's got to be done. And while we might have had the model turf field when it was first put in back 17 years ago, schools are now filling in the D section. When I say D section, that's from the end zone or the end of the goal to the circle. That's the letter D. And so they've been utilizing that functionally instead of where we have it with grass. So it's like, let's get it right, and I agree that we should. But the concern I have is if they're going to do it, I guess the field, I don't know what that does as far as sports in the fall, but I'd like to get it all done right. And so if it means putting it off to the annual, then that's fine with me, but I want it done right this time. I'm looking at you folks. You're not the cause of it, but that's where I'm coming from.
This,
So,
as you said, the plan for the track hadn't been figured out yet.
yeah, so it makes sense.
So let's
All right.
get it right.
I agree.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, you want to take a pause for 5 minutes?
How about a 5-minute break?
9:30, 5-minute break?
Sounds good.
Oh, we have to vote the warrant first. So I have a motion to close the warrant, and then we'll take a break.
Move to close the warrant? Or what's?
For November 14th, 2017, fall, I'll state. Move the Board of Selectmen to close the warrant for the November 14th, 2017 Fall Special Town Meeting at 9:30 PM.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute.
Great.
Folks. We are at the review and reassign the Selectmen liaison positions with our new member, Mrs. Canfield. So if we just want to go down quickly, I know Karen has asked, she has some specific interests, so let's just go down, all right? Just to make this quick, is that good?
Yeah. Want me to run?
So advisory committee, that'll remain me, because that usually is the liaison for the chair. Affordable housing, John?
Fine with me. Yep.
Do you want to?
All right, why don't you tell me the
Which
ones that
ones are-
you're-
I forgot which ones you
that
want.
like.
Yeah, so, Beach Commission, Tony was gonna,
Yep.
I was gonna take over for Tony.
Okay.
Um,
Lorraine, do you have that?
Yep.
Okay.
Capital Planning.
Yep.
From
You can take
Madam
that.
Chair.
Yep.
Public Building Commission from Sean.
Where's that?
Down the bottom.
Down below.
The reason, Karen, you know, I
Yeah.
think it makes sense. I mean, I haven't missed many at all, but
No.
where Karen was so instrumental in the library, that needs to get finished up. So she might take it for first quarter, first half year, whatever, and after that's completely done, whatever it takes, and then.
Yeah, I
talk
appreciate
with
that.
you.
I would
Yeah.
like to see that through to, for.
That's great. That's a good idea.
And, yeah, Sean, just for the record, Sean was at every one of those meetings, every 2 weeks for the last 2 years.
Sean's wonderful.
Yes, he's wonderful.
Come on, come on.
I'm sorry.
Did you want traffic rules too?
Um,
You're really picking on me, but you can have it.
all right, I'll take.
Well, you
traffic-
just said that.
Yeah, I
You-
do. I want
yeah.
traffic rules and South Shore Coalition, Tony?
Yep.
Okay,
I hate to give that one up, but
that's 5. Do I need more, ma'am?
Yeah, I think
You
you
didn't take
usually
any
have
from
10.
You didn't take any from John.
Right. John,
Oh, no, because that, all right, John, that definitely. So the
He's got a lot of, he's got,
Bylaw Review Commission and Planning
Non-existent.
Board
it doesn't
and,
really happen. John has Council on Aging, Economic Development,
disabilities,
Historic Commission, Planning Board,
Which one do I
Council on
got?
Disabilities,
EDC.
Chamber of
Doesn't matter to me.
Commerce. John, which one?
So, I mean, planning board, you said, Karen, that you're interested in?
yeah?
That's fine if you're interested. I mean, if you want the bylaw, unfortunately, it's a non-functional commission right now because we don't have enough people.
Oh, I'll take that then.
I'll do that one.
This is, never mind, I won't say. So, I mean, you're welcome to have the name, but until we have people, it doesn't meet.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And it's not a function of us not, it's a function of people not getting
That's
engaged.
6, I mean, that's,
It's a lot. 2, 3, 4, 5,
I have
6.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's the 7?
the bylaw.
Beach Commission,
I have
bylaw
3.
review.
Oh, we didn't decide on bylaw. Okay. That's what they were just discussing.
Shouldn't an attorney be on that or no?
For people who are involved,
We don't even have
it
one
would be
right now,
nice,
so why
yeah.
are we spending time
Be nice, at
discussing
least
it?
somebody, but
Yeah,
it's not a
I
given,
John
it's
on
not
bylaw.
necessary.
Okay. And,
It's just the screen.
You take your bylaw.
No, that's
No,
what
he's-
Or leave John on bylaw.
I do want to propose a new liaison, which I don't know if this is the right format or time. It's something that I had tried to advocate for before when I was a library trustee, especially given the hiccups getting the building online. If we could create a new liaison position, I don't know how that's done, to the library, and then I would definitely raise my hand for that one too. Because I think there's going to be some issues with the startup of the new building that could use some of our oversight.
I can put it on the next meeting agenda.
That's what I was gonna say, just on
Okay.
an
Yeah.
agenda
You
item.
have to, you don't have to
think
vote
we have-
during the meeting.
I think any changes.
I mean, you can just go.
I mean, you can-
Right.
If you want to add a new liaison position,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because there were some issues between the library trustees and the town administrator that caused frustration on both sides, and part of it was to be resolved. I think a board member or the liaison that was the library trustees.
I'll add it to the next agenda to add that new liaison position.
Okay. And then did you want water resources committee? Is that the other one you took?
Yes, that was the
Okay.
one. Okay, that's enough.
All right, so just summarize it with Lorraine so she's
All
got it
right,
right.
so Beach Commission, Capital Planning Committee, Planning Board, Public Building Commission for the interim, South Shore Coalition, Traffic Rules and Regs, Water Resources, And that's it for now.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's 8.
You tell your husband you'll see him in a year. No.
4.
If you change your mind, we can reshuffle
And
the
we
deck,
cover,
too.
we cover for
I'm
one another.
enthusiastic about jumping in and getting involved as much as I can.
Well, and this, can I just mention this? I meant
Yes.
to say something a couple of minutes ago, and we don't have to talk about it anymore, but I mentioned it before. What do you guys think about forming a committee, commission, ad hoc, just to bring information back to us?
I got 2.
Widows Walk. Commission for Widows Walk, committee?
I think
I've
we
been
should-
on it 3 times over the last 15 years.
No, well, a permanent, we don't have one.
I was on it with Dick Blake and Joe Norton. I was with it.
When it was
Years
being
ago?
built?
No, since then.
No, but, yeah, but it doesn't exist now. I mean, just, like what we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of people in town who have a lot of,
My point is, I've been on it twice. It
Hasn't-
starts for a year, nothing gets done, and it just fades away.
So
Tony, do you think that-
let's also, I think that's something that,
But
we
now
would
with the
test in
bond
the
being
new
gone,
town
that's-
administration as well.
That's my point. In other words, now that the bond's gone,
That's why I
there's
raise it.
revenue, that you have an opportunity to take a look at it, which
Something
might
to
be a
think
good time.
about.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
it's
so
a good idea.
when we were running in the spring, Monty, a gentleman came up, really excited to do, so
So
something
I
to
think
think
it's a
about.
good idea,
Okay.
and I think both, that
And we could put Karen on that as well.
okay, we'll take that up with our new,
Somehow I have 10
TA.
assignments, so I don't know how everybody got less than me, and
Next agenda
missed that
item.
and the new one's got 8. I'm like,
this is what happens when you come in late.
You had to jump back faster.
Okay, so we're good with that? John, is there anything else you wanted to give up?
reluctantly, yes, I'm good.
Okay, all right. So, moving on to the next item, discussion and vote for some one-day liquor licenses. We have one-day wine and malt for
Tailor-made, motion?
St. Mary's Parish. Yep.
Yeah, it's actually St. Mary's, not Maritime, so just so you know.
Move the Board of Selectmen approve a one-day wine and malt license for an event located at St. Mary's Parish Center, 1 Kent Street, for tailor-made bartending on Friday, October 20th, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And there's one more.
Yep.
Move that the Board of Selectmen approve a one-day wine and malt license at Scituate Maritime Center at 119 Edward Foster Road for the following event: Kate's Table on Wednesday, October 18th, 2017, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion?
Never heard of that one. Is
No,
that
me neither.
fairly new?
No, they've been around for a while.
Okay.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We just don't have them a lot.
Tell us how the food is, Tony.
All right. Thank you. Correspondence, we have some. I don't know if you have any new ones, John?
Yeah, it looks as though that there's a letter from the Attorney General's office dated September 15th. It was carbon copied to us, and it's in relation to Miss Patricia Lambert. Dear Miss Lambert, we understand that on June 6, 2017, you filed a complaint with the Scituate Board of Selectmen alleging a violation of the open meeting law, and the board is required to notify our office of the complaint and any remedial action taken to address the complaint. And our office received notification and a response from the Board of Selectmen on June 26, 2017. Under the open meeting law, a complaint is ripe for review by our office when the complainant files a copy of the initial complaint with the Division of Open Government, provided that at least 30 days have passed since that complaint was filed with the public body. And that's pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 23, and also to pursuant to some Code of Regulation, Massachusetts regulations. We sent you a letter on July 6, 2017, stating that if we did not receive the original complaint from you by Monday, September 4th, 2017, we would presume the action taken by the board was sufficient and would close this file. Our office currently has no record of a complaint filed by you in this matter, and therefore we now consider the matter closed. And that's the first letter we have here. And the second one is, another letter regarding, Nora in the Water Department, and it just says, to whom it may concern, I wanted to take this opportunity to let you know about my experience with one of your staff at the water department. I was calling for the owner of the building at Morning Glory's Bakery, I guess, and had asked me to call the water department because of an issue regarding the water pressure. I was looking at putting on hold, and you have to forgive me, this is handwritten, to put on hold, and she was put on hold, and she was looking to also, I guess,
She had a great experience with
a great
Nora.
experience.
Right, and
Oh,
Nora.
she wasn't, okay.
Nora did a great job handling it.
There you go, thank you for reading this.
It is hard to
So
read.
thank you.
Very hard to read.
And then they went on to thank Michelle Segezi as well.
Well, that was very nice. So the third letter I have is actually from Comcast, September 22nd. It just says to the Board of Selectmen and the members, as part of our continuing effort to keep you informed, we want to share the following information with customers who are receiving via bill this message. You'll love this. On or about November 7th, 2017, the ESPN Classic will no longer be available to Comcast. So anybody who's interested in ESPN Classic, it's being taken away by none other than Comcast, the company that you pay so much money for your TV, and get all those stations that now they're taking out.
1986 college football game.
And then it says effective November 20th, 2017, the XF Triple Play Rewards Sports Entertainment Service at $8.95 per month for our preferred XF, preferred Latino, HD preferred XF, preferred extra Latino, HD preferred extra FF, and all these other things are going to be taken away from you. Again, you pay more and you receive less. And that's from Comcast by a Michael Gala Sr., the government affairs person. So all you people out there, you pay more and you get less from your Comcast. And that's the correspondence for this week. Madam Chair.
Thank you, John. There's one more from the state lottery.
Oh.
With regards to Aquino and the
No, that's going
7-Eleven.
to be scheduled for the next meeting because that requires a vote.
I have to have a hearing on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for
That must be
clarifying that.
new.
I have some correspondence.
Yes,
Could I,
Al?
could I read some?
Yes,
I forgot to do it during my earlier session.
sure, no
And it's
problem.
from Tom Hickey, who is a superintendent director of the South Shore Regional VOTEC. And the VOTEC, I won't read the letter, basically the VOTEC is having their annual open house on Saturday, October the 14th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they're inviting families and elected and officials from across the region to come and meet with the current students, teachers, and counselors, and administrators, and view demonstrations in their 14 different vocational technical programs. So he's inviting and encouraging on behalf of their district committee and the faculty and staff of the VOTEC that residents come visit the VOTEC located on Webster Street in Hanover on Saturday, October 14th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
You know, that's a great school that a lot of people don't know a lot about. Can we Facebook that, Lorraine?
Sure, absolutely.
Just let folks know about that open house. That'd be nice. I think to help them out. Any other correspondence? Okay, there being none, I don't think. Approval of meeting minutes. We have meeting minutes to approve for Board of Selectmen meetings for September 19th, 25th, and the 26th, which were our interviews.
Move to accept the meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen meetings held on September 19th, September 25th, and September 26th, 2017.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have a list of executive meeting minutes, executive session minutes that we need to go through individually to release to the public. So this is common. Some of them are from a couple of years ago. Some of them are with redactions because matters were still pending. So we need to go through these individually. I don't know if
I'll make a motion.
do you have them
I'll
individually
move
right
them.
there?
I move to release the executive session meeting minutes for the following meetings: November 12th, 2013, March 25th.
Skip that one.
Skip the two yellow ones.
Because we have to also approve and release.
I know, I'm going to approve them right now. I'm going to move to approve them. All right, so let me start again. I'm going to strike that. Move to release the executive session meeting minutes for the following meetings: November 12th, 2013, December 21st, 2015, January 6, 2016. May 10th, 2016. June 21st, 2016. December 20th, 2016. June 6, 2017. April 4th, 2017. Let's go that. That's my motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You
All
have
right.
to- You should abstain.
I think she did.
Well,
Oh,
should I abstain because we're releasing them, or we're not
You weren't.
approving?
you
Weren't
weren't.
here.
You weren't part of them.
Well, I wasn't here in 2013.
But it's a releasing, not an approving. I don't know.
Okay.
You're the lawyer.
No,
you
no,
do.
that's,
That's
You-
fine.
you-
right.
it-
I'll
I
abstain.
suppose you could probably vote on them, because
I'll
you're just
abstain.
voting to release it.
Till-
All right. I'm going to move to release the executive session meeting minutes for the following meetings. March 25th, 2014, to approve and also to release, and November 1st, 2016, to approve and also to release.
second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? I have discussion. John, I think we have to separate those two because I was not on the board in 2014, so I can't approve those minutes. So I think we have to take those two individually, so if you can,
All right, I'll move to modify, okay, strike the motion. I'm going to strike the motion.
sorry,
All right?
Schultz.
So I'm going to move to release the executive session meeting minutes for the following meeting. March 25th, 2014, to approve and also to release.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
All right.
Two abstentions, sorry.
I'm also going to further move to release the executive session meeting minutes for the following meeting. November 1st, 2016, to approve and also to release.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye. And then finally,
One abstention there.
I'm going to move,
Staying there? Karen.
Karen.
Okay.
Karen's going to be abstaining probably on all these.
Yes.
So I'm going to move to release the executive session meeting minutes for the following meetings. June 28th, 2014, with redactions. April 26th, 2016, with redactions. May 24th, 2016, with redactions. March 29th, 2017, with redactions. March 7th, 2017, with redactions. And finally, January 24th, 2017, with redactions.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Karen abstained. 4-1. All right, thank you. I know that was a little raised.
Painful.
Yes. So we are going to go into executive session and then return back into open session. So the Board of Selectmen would like to move into executive session to consider strategy and preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel regarding the town administrator position, and the board will reconvene in open session.
I'll move the Board of Selectmen go into executive session to consider strategy and preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. That is the town administrator position. The board will reconvene in open session.
Don't we have to say because it will have a,
That's what
We're
I'm,
leaving something out
yeah.
because
we
it'd be
gotta say because of
detrimental
that.
to having an open session, or do we do it on purpose?
It wasn't written like that in the legal document that I have for this particular motion.
I think it's town council wrote it.
Oh, all right, okay.
Okay? Yeah, in town council. So roll call vote, Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Mr. Danahy,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Okay, so we move into executive session at 10:02 PM.
Good night, folks.